we're have I should say, yeah, we have William already in with us, and we have Retro, who's part of the show, and that everybody else should be rolling in probably between around 12:30, 1 o'clock. Hopefully everything works out good with Zuby because Zuby thought we were using Discord, and hopefully everything works out that he's able to do a restream. This might be the last time we do restream because I'm having nothing but issues with the panel and restream. Restream, you need to fix your shit because it is horrible, 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 horrible. Discord has it all over you. So yeah, you got my money for the year, but I ain't going to be using your stuff. Sammy, how you doing? What I wanted to do was I wanted just to start like an hour early to give Retro and I, because a couple weeks ago Retro wasn't on the show. He
You tried
had
to
to go.
sack me, but there was an uprising.
No, 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 no. That's bullshit. Don't be lying like that. Don't be lying.
Why
Okay.
everybody else seems to lie on Twitter and shit? Why can't I make up some lies?
Okay. I can't listen. I can't take that away from you. There are a lot of lies, and we're going to actually be getting into a little bit of it. But what I wanted to do was he wasn't available for the 23rd when we had Noof Nukem, Darth Praxis, and Cerebral Paul on. He was not here to give his year in review, so I wanted to give him a little bit of time. But he sat there and basically said it'll be real short. So I'm going to let him have the floor. Retro, your year in review. What was good about it and what was bad about it?
Gran Turismo 7. That was probably the best bit of the year for me personally. Just because they've basically made the best Gran Turismo in a long, long time, and it's just been really fun to jump into it and just get a little bit of nostalgia kind of feeling while playing through it, and also making just tons of new friends to play with online. Man, it's been fantastic. Um, God of War, Horizon Forbidden West, uh, they were highlights for me personally. My biggest surprise of the year, Need for Speed, the new Need for Speed. I know it was out late on, but I'm surprised by how much I'm enjoying. It's like a fusion of Burnout Paradise and the classic Need for Speeds, and I'm just really loving it at the minute. Um, no real bad experiences, man. No real bad experiences. So pretty good year overall.
Yo, you have everybody brainwashed about this Crocs thing. Sammy's sitting there going, wait a minute, I'm gonna bring it up. Uh we left Crocs in 2022, dude. No,
Facts,
we never
Sammy.
moved.
Facts, bro. Facts.
No, that's not facts. We bring our Crocs forward. We do.
I burn them. Burn them all.
Just letting you blokes know. I guess that's how it is in that. But okay, so what was, in your opinion, what was bad about the year? I mean, was there anything bad about this year or last year in gaming?
Nothing I played was bad.
Nothing
Um,
you okay?
Nothing I personally played was bad. So yeah, I didn't really have any bad experiences. I can't think of any, bro.
Okay. Let me see here. Bring in Mr. Jim. Jim, how are you doing today, sir? Is Jim there?
I'm doing all right.
Ah, there we are. There we are.
Yes, it takes me a second to turn on my audio deck.
Why does it always sound like he's giving a throat job?
Uh,
Jim,
Because
stop swallowing that
that's
mic, man.
because that's your hearing.
It's definitely not my hearing. You're blowing that mic out, man.
Mm,
uh, okay. So nothing bad, happened or that you thought was happening. I mean, is that basically it for you? I mean,
I don't
yeah.
remember anything particularly bad, man. I mean, in what aspect do you mean?
Well, okay. So let me see if you can actually feed off of me for a minute. See, my thing, what was good about last year was the community, being able to meet, Jim, having being able to meet William, having him on the show, Jim on the show. David Faulkner, Hamp, everybody that's in the community in that, being able to meet them, come in and say, hey, be on the show, getting to know them, seeing them on Twitter and that, interacting with everybody. That was great for me. But then I sit there and I say the awful part about last year, and it's all, I mean, we're not even halfway through the month. And it's like, I'm just, this is the reason why I have backed off of Twitter. You got a lot of deadheads, people that make a lot of bullshit up. They cry, they whine. I mean, here, let's.
Yeah, I don't let that affect my enjoyment of the actual. You know what I mean?
I get it. But then see, this is my issue. Okay, you have and I'm not going to say any names because I was told, don't put out any names, but I will reference. And this is how I will reference. You had a grumpy old man that was on Twitter that was complaining about the DualSense Edge controller and only having a battery life of maybe 3 to 4 hours. And listen, that's perfectly fine. You want your opinion. I'm all about it. But here's the question that I have for you. Okay. And this is, I'm going to put this to say Jim sat there and said this, right? And Jim was like, I'm not buying a controller for $200 that the battery life is only going to be 3 to 4 hours. Jim has a complaint. I listen, I'll jump in there with Jim. But if you have had never a thought about buying the controller, shut up. You don't have an opinion. Your opinion does not matter. If you were not going to buy the controller, you didn't pre-order it, your complaint, shut up. Because who cares? Nobody is forcing you to buy a controller. Okay.
All right, but see, here's where it's annoying. It's because yes, it has a slightly shorter life than the normal controller, but it's not 4 hours. So why have they got to go to the extreme end of bullshit? Why can't they just say, yeah, it has less battery than the original? Why have they got to go extreme with it? I don't understand. That's what gets me.
Here's the thing, though. Let me ask you this, okay? They're sitting there and they're saying that the battery life is 3 to 4 hours. So that just tells me, and this is where...
But how would they know? Nobody has one.
Exactly. Do they have one right in front of them that they're playing at that time? They are making accusations about a product they don't even have. So shut up.
Stating it as fact. That's the problem I have. A lot of opinions are stated as facts.
And that is my issue. Okay? Listen, you can have your opinion. I don't care. Everybody has opinions. They're like assholes. Everybody has one.
And it's usually full of shit.
Yes, exactly. But then I'm going to sit there and I'm going to say, okay, I was liking somebody was putting on there, I think it was like a week or two ago. We had Hamp on, and Hamp was sitting there saying people were talking about Activision going and unionizing in that. And he was sitting there saying that it was a lot of QA testers and not developers. A person came out today and sat there and said the CWA put down animators, developers, testers, and things like that. 57 of them. Okay. Hey, that is fantastic, because I'm going to wait for Dewalf to get in here because I want to talk to him about, the United States unions and that stuff, and why are they kind of shitty in a way. And then listen, there's a part that's very good to a union, and then there's parts that are very bad to a union. I'll get into that later on in that. But the thing is
hey, somebody else that agrees with me on unions.
Well, wait, because maybe you'll have a difference of opinion later on what I have
to me, union is good in some respects, but in other respects, it's like, why?
And I will actually prove it in some ways why they kind of could be a little bit bad. But going to that with the union thing, it's 57 people. So out of the 57 people, tell me how many are the animators, the developers, the people that are making as Hamp will sit there and say 6-figure salaries and getting a ton of benefits and things like that, besides what a QA tester is. How many of those people, if it is only 3 or 5, do you honestly think that's going to make a gigantic difference when it comes to, unions and that? You do need a lot more people. It's just, you need to be specific. I totally agree. Hey, it is great that they're unionizing, okay, in some ways. It is very good. But I'm going to tell you what, and I'll get into it later on. When they do unionize, you're going to see the effects later on with your games, possibly the way they are developed, and for sure how much you're going to be paying for them and your services and things like that. Because one thing I know about a union, they are going to raise the prices. The Pennsylvania Turnpike is part of the Teamster Union. People keep bitching about Easy Pass. Okay. Every year, Easy Pass goes up. It goes up in price. Why does it go up in price? It's just not only sitting there and taking care of the roads, but it's also, if I was still with the Pennsylvania Turnpike, I'd be making close to $50 an hour. You pay for that as the driver. Not in Pennsylvania Turnpike, like most of all the turnpikes, they're not state. They are privately owned. The Pennsylvania Turnpike, when I was with them in 2008, made, now this is 14, 15 years ago, $27 billion a year. Let that sink in a little bit. $27 billion. Okay. The amount of land that the Pennsylvania Turnpike owns in just the state of Pennsylvania, and they are raising the rates every year on Easy Pass. But yet, you're forced to have Easy Pass. I shouldn't say forced. You should have Easy Pass because then you get a discount. Doesn't that sound like something else? Like maybe
it's not exactly a discount if you're paying for it, though.
Right.
Just
but
saying.
Discount, you get that discount this year, but then next year it goes up. You still have that discount, but then what's happening is you're paying last year's prices this year. So you're only saving a little bit each year. Okay. Now here's a couple things I just want to throw out there. Okay. Jim and I talked to Adam and that. We're going to see what maybe we can do possibly next week. I might actually see if he's available Friday night to roll him in.
Right.
Excuse me for this. Okay. But this is the stuff that I can't stand. Okay. When you sit there and you're putting it out there. Okay. If you don't understand why, now this is Biscuits and Gravy. Okay. I know I'm not supposed to say the name or whatever, but I just want to make sure. Liquid metal cooling solution is a design flaw. This certain person gave a great explanation. Now, the thing is if you're on Twitter, you're going to know that I called this person out because I'm not going to sit there and hide. But the person that is making this assumption, are you a computer engineer? Are you a software engineer? Is this your job? Okay. Is this your job? Now, that's the reason why I would have Adam. Jim would also know about this. But let me go on a little bit more. This is how disgusting the community is. You have this guy, Christopher Dring. Yeah, Dring. I'm sorry if I'm saying the name wrong. But he sits there and says in a Twitter post, there's a lot of popular fanboy argument that games like God of War and Horizon did well because they had official hardware bundles. But that's just not true. Those bundles certainly helped, but they didn't account for anywhere near the majority of sales. So you're sitting there and you put that out there, right? Now, maybe William sat there and, you might have come across this, okay? But then you have people that sit there and go, but it's still a valid argument. I don't think it's a fanboy one. Yes, because then when you sit there and you have like this asshole here, Troll Reaver Reborn, when every single PS5 sold 4 months, learn how to spell because 4 is not GOR, it's FOR. Months has a Forbidden West game added. No shit, Sherlock, it does. This coming from a guy whose entire Twitter engagement comes from what a couple 100,000 UK physical only gamers bought this week. You have this asshole here, True Gamer. It's true, and Sony's business strategy since beginning PS4 Spider-Man bundles is fact. Let's keep going on and on because
What
there's a
is the
lot of
problem with bundling
I
your
don't know, man. I
killer
don't.
games in your console? What? This is so dumb. This is just one of those arguments. They're like, when
William.
people are dick measuring about how
It's
many
throwing
sales,
shit at a wall and seeing what
then try
sticks.
to remove games that are included in bundles,
Can
as if the person didn't buy the console at like one of the main reasons he bought the console is because it had a killer app game on it.
Okay,
It's like,
so here, let me ask
this
you
goes back to the original Nintendo.
Thank
Yeah,
you. Did the original
exactly.
Nintendo have Super Mario and Duck Hunt?
Yeah, and Sega,
Every
the
console
reason
I've got,
why people bought Sega
Yet
is
these guys are
it
so
came with
about
Sonic.
video.
Can we
every single
stop this
console I've
bullshit?
ever bought
It's so
was a
stupid.
bundle.
Can we please move on to a better topic?
Every single.
Can every single person that's making these like retarded arguments shut up? Because it's so dumb. The reason why you buy a console a lot of the time is because it has a killer app game on it. Now I bought it before that. I bought the original PlayStation 5 that didn't have a killer app game on it. But that's because I'm a PlayStation tech enthusiast kind of person. But the majority of people are gonna wait until there's a killer app game. This is
I
Halo.
kind of meant
This is
I kind of meant
Mario.
the
This is
stores have always ran
Fireball.
bundles too. I mean, every console you can get bundles. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. This is Halo.
even
This is Spider-Man. This is Mario. This is
Gran
this
Turismo.
is
Hey,
Like,
let me
Gran
ask you
Turismo.
guys
This
this.
is
Isn't there a
God of War.
Forza bundle coming out that Xbox has? But I don't hear nobody sitting there bitching and complaining about that. They're
Yeah,
bitching.
no one cares about. No one's gonna
Sale.
bitch and complain about the Halo Infinite bundle or the Gears 6 bundle when it
Yeah.
eventually happens.
Not gonna lie, I'm kind of waiting for the whole bitch nut about the Halo bundle thing.
It's
never happened.
no
I
one
don't know
like
where
this
that
whole
went.
argument is dumb, and everyone knows it, and so we can move on.
Well, see, that's what I'm trying. And here's let me. I'm trying to. Okay, so here's another one that I don't understand it. Okay, this person put this out there. Why are you promoting a genocide supporting fascist game that glorifies imperialist past? Xbox support, Xbox Game Pass, disgusting. I know they paid you, but you cannot be that stripped, should be strapped for cash. And this is about Atomic Heart. Come on, man. Come on.
Wait,
Really?
what? So
Yeah.
then that means, by their logic, Modern Warfare, Call of Duty, Battlefield 1942, Battlefield, the entire
I think-
series.
Is the baseline of his argument that Atomic Heart was made
Yeah.
by a Russian developer? Is that what his baseline argument is?
It's her tweet is a Russian developer because the developers for
The reason why the game is allowed to be sold in the United States is because the developers are in Cyprus, if I'm correct. Am I not?
Yes.
Wrong? Am I wrong about this?
No, you're actually
No,
correct.
you were correct.
Okay.
Let me see if I can actually bring it up.
So, just if it was first of all, let's just go first of all. If it was made directly in Moscow, it would not be sold in the United States in the first place. And we can have an argument about whether that's good or bad, but that's one thing. But the developers are in Cyprus, and individuals can have whatever allegiances they have. Can we separate? Like, I don't know. I mean, I guess it would be bad to say this is a terrible argument because this is the same. This is kind of similar to worries about NetEase and Tencent and stuff in China. So it's not like these arguments shouldn't be.
I mean,
considered.
if we're gonna go on whole Tencent China, then we kind of need to look at Epic Games because ownership by Tencent there.
Well, they're not fully owned, but
No,
Tencent has a lot of.
but they are tied to the Chinese
investments
government
in a lot of different.
and
Yeah, they have
shit like that.
investments in a lot of different places. And these are things that we should be worried about because of censorship and um, and values not aligning with our values of liberty and justice and all these things. But so it's not like her foundational point is bad, but her I don't know. I feel like this is just one of those things you have to take take each situation on a case by case basis. And in the situation of Atomic Heart, you're gonna just have to judge for yourself whether or not it being developed in Cyprus is enough. If you care about the war going on in Europe, you have to determine for yourself if it being developed in Cyprus as opposed to directly in Moscow is enough of a difference for you. But at the end of the day, you should also remember that these are human beings and they could have their own opinions that may or may not align with Putin's or Zelensky's or the United States or whatever. And there's also the argument of judging art by the art instead of the artist, you know. So these are things that every individual needs to determine for themselves. And
Yeah.
that's how I look at it.
Well, okay. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to play this too because there's a lot of apparently people that are butthurt. So hopefully I can let me make sure everybody can hear this. Okay, and this is he's been on Salty show, but I just want to play this real quick. Let me see here.
So let's look at our in-game time.
Oh, I recognize that voice.
2 hours and 46 minutes. -1. We're 50-50. We're basically 50-50. So this game so far is 50% gameplay and 50% cutscenes.
Is this synthetic, man? Or
No, it's another one that's
Most of the gameplay is like
is this one of those
pretty
anti
questionable, I would say.
What games
no,
are you talking about?
it's one of the PlayStation extremists.
As bad as I thought it would be.
It's almost over.
Yeah, like it's okay, but I kind of get why people would like this game. And again, like Soul Snob here, it's simple. It's simple, just like mash the buttons, flip between your arrows, shoot the things. I don't know. People love that kind of shit. They love this. They love this where it's like an interactive movie, and then every now and then they get a few enemies that they get to shoot and kill.
This is
Okay,
every
we can
video
talk
game
about-
ever made.
Okay, so now that's coming from a gentleman called named Fornitron. He's been on Salty Show.
He's the isn't he like
What
a Souls
game
gaming person?
is he talking about?
Horizon Zero Dawn. So here's my thing. Okay,
What?
this is but okay. Before I'll you can thrash and do whatever you want to do and that stuff retro in 1 second.
I'm not crashing. I'm gobsmacked.
Yeah, but you can explain what your concern is. Here's the thing. Why? Listen to me. Who cares what he says? He's a nobody to me. I don't give a shit about him. Okay, he could say whatever he wants to say. He admits that he's a Souls person. Well, then just stick to Souls games, dude. Okay,
Yeah.
but you don't need to make a video and come out and say and shit on another game. It's just like me sitting there and I don't know, shitting on Gears of War or Halo or something like that, or sitting there and shitting on God of War. He didn't care for God of War, and that's your opinion. That's great. It don't bother me. God of War blows away any Souls game. That's my opinion. That is my opinion, and my opinion only. Okay, but just don't even follow him. I don't follow him. I don't care what he says.
What does being a fan of a Souls type game have to do with another game?
Exactly.
What he stated wasn't correct. Even slightly. In fact, if anything, the Souls gameplay is actually more limited than what Horizon would be.
People got butthurt over it because he also sat there and said that Elden Ring was a better game than God of War Ragnarok.
I don't know whether it is or it isn't. I haven't played Elden Ring. I'm not personally a Souls fan, so I couldn't tell you the quality of that game. I'm certainly not going to state that God of War is the best game ever or anything like that, or Horizon's the best. You know what I mean?
Both of
Like,
those games are definitely fine and worthy of winning Game of the Year. And Elden Ring definitely deserved it, but so did God of War. And anyone who says otherwise is lying.
well, like I say, I can't talk on Elden Ring because I haven't played it. I enjoyed God of War. I enjoyed Horizon. But you already know, personally, my game of the year was Gran Turismo. And not many people are picking a racing game. Do you know what I mean?
Well, see,
Mhm.
So-
here's another thing. When you sit there and say that, okay, here's another opinion that to me, it's just an opinion. There's no fact to state it back up. But I heard a YouTuber sit there and say, Rise, Son of Rome, actually is a better looking game than what God of War Ragnarok is. To me, when you sit there and you say stuff like that, that's one, you're trying to get people upset. Two, you're a propaganda spreader. Okay, you like pushing, those elements so people can come and listen to your horrible show, spread lies. Okay, and three, that just tells me you did not play God of War Ragnarok then, because
Mhm.
I have played both. Rise, Son of Rome is a very good looking game. It does not touch God of War Ragnarok.
It's a good looking game for last gen consoles.
Right.
It's probably the only good looking game on Xbox for for graphical.
The thing
Look
is,
at Last of Us Part 2 on last gen consoles would destroy Rise Son of Rome.
it did.
And then God of War is a step above that. God of War Ragnarok is a step above that because it's, mostly on next gen. And the Horizon is a step above Horizon Forbidden West is a step above that because there's literally no game that exists right now that looks better than Horizon Forbidden.
But the thing is people take that as fact. That is his opinion, and that's great that he had that opinion. I totally disagree with it because to me, you haven't played God of War Ragnarok if you're matching it up against Rise, Son of Rome. And I loved Rise, Son of Rome. It was a
So,
fantastic game.
but what he's saying with his statement, right, is that half of my 100-hour gameplay in for Horizon was cutscenes. So you're telling me I sat there and watched 50 hours of cutscenes?
He was
It's just
basing it off
bullshit.
of 3 hours. 3 hours he played, and that's what he was basing it off of.
Well, I played 100, and that's just the story complete. That's not even everything done.
That's
But yeah,
what I mean. Yeah,
so yeah,
bro,
it's
just
the,
like this.
I don't
It's like
mind I don't mind people having opinions, man. But when you're being idiotic, that's when I draw the line. It's like, no, you're just being silly now.
right.
Like, we are adults. We are
at
adults.
bare
Can we
minimum-
please act like it?
Right. What were you going to say, Jim?
At the bare minimum, they should at least attempt to complete the entire game before making any kind of substantial opinion on it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's fair if he doesn't like it, or it's not his thing, or he just didn't enjoy himself. That's fair enough.
Right.
Nobody's gonna fucking hang him for those opinions. But again, when you make overblown statements, that's when there's an issue. You know what I mean? That's when I have a problem. It's like, come on, we're grown. We're acting like fucking kids, man. It needs to stop.
Yes. See, and that's my gripe in that. Okay, that is my gripe with the community. When you have people that are in their late 30s, their 40s, a couple of guys, they're 50, 51, 52, 55 years old, and you're sitting there, and the thing is you're more worried about how many subs that you have and that you need to get to a certain point. Okay, how many likes, how many hours you put into YouTube and that stuff. Okay, no offense to the gentlemen that are on the show now, the gentlemen that will be on the show later, and everybody that has been a part of this channel. Listen, I could drop this and not give a shit about this channel, this YouTube, or anything like that, because it's not my life. I don't make no money. None of these guys make
miss
any
me
money.
though.
Okay.
Don't lie. You miss
Yes.
me.
Well, no, I miss all you guys, but there would be some way of trying to get
Fuck them
together.
other guys. They're talking about me, Doom. All right.
Yes. Well, yes.
Don't worry about them other guys.
I got, I love you, but that's that. But see, the thing is Why? And Retro has it right. Jim sat there and said it. William sat there and said it. Everybody said, you're grown ass men. Why are you spreading horseshit? I mean, seriously, if you don't know what you're talking about, okay, let me throw this out there. I have no financial background, no developer background. I'm a construction worker. I'm damn good at doing that. But let me ask you this, okay? Let me ask 2 out of the 3 panelists, because I think Retro would sit there and say the exact same thing. Okay, Wolfie, how you doing? Sammy, Twisted, everybody in the chat, thank you for coming by. We're going to be starting the show very, very soon when everybody else rolls in here and that. So just hang on here. But let me ask Jim first. Jim, what kind of a background do you have in, we're going to say, maybe gaming or finance? Do you have any kind of a background, computer engineering, anything like that?
Finance, no. Background wise, I've got a degree in computer networking and system security. And currently have a job for a reputable company that has a big orange and black logo that drives black and white vehicles. And I'll just leave it at that for that.
Okay.
But then I'm not sure how well they would want me to, dox that.
But then you're also in a group that are developing your own video game. Am I correct?
Yes. That is correct. We are, yes, we're still kind of learning as we go, but we're putting the time and effort into learning so that we can better understand things and go, okay, that's why that does that, and this makes, this amount of logic or whatever.
Okay. So let me ask William the same question. What is your background on I don't know, gaming? Do you have any kind of degree in development, computer engineer, system engineer, financial analyst, anything like that? I mean, what is your background?
So I don't do video game development stuff, but I do know financial analysis stuff. I've been in analysis and security for a little over 5 to 6 years. I've been in security for 7 years. That is both online security and physical security, and consultation on protecting your businesses and protecting your assets, especially in locations where rioting and dangerous activities are most common. And I also do analysis on financials, on stocks, and on the business side of things. I read quarterly reports and yearly reports of different businesses, and then I can parse out. Because of my background, I know how to parse out information from these quarterly or annual reports and explain to the layman what is being said and how much money is being spent in different areas, what's being made, what's being lost, what future goals are. On my Twitter, if you follow me at William R. Aguilar, I have 13 mega threads right now. One of my mega threads focuses on financial reports and highlights, and I have one for Square Enix, one for Sony, and one for From Software or Katakawa, and I go in depth on what was reported in the annual reports and explaining in a way that's easy to understand for the everyman what was being spent and what their future business plans are. And then one of the reasons I got into doing stuff on Twitter is because I saw so much misinformation on Twitter. There is so much misinformation and blatant lies that about what PlayStation was doing, or the future of video games or video game development and money, that I was like, I can't deal with this anymore. My expertise in analysis and applied it to, and I've been doing infographics in my analysis and security work for years. So I just took that and applied it to PlayStation related content to explain things about what's happening, what happens in financials and features and correcting misinformation online about different things that people don't understand. And so there's a lot of things that people just don't understand about the business and about business in general. And I have decided to throw myself into the ring to professionally correct misinformation, specifically about PlayStation, because that's where I saw the most amount of misinformation being spread and lies being spread by people who don't understand business or understand the features and the purpose and the design philosophy or the or anything about how PlayStation is supposed to work on the business side, or the features that PlayStation has for the gamers. And because video games are my hobby to the side that I care about, and I care about quality games, I knew that I felt like I had a unique ability to be able to explain these different things in a way that people could understand, to dispel misinformation, to enlighten people on the business side of things, on the feature side of things, and on the future, the future outlook.
Okay, and see, and that's my thing. Okay, with this show here, Friday night is a good, a good old time show. We throw out whatever it is, and that's why I with the guys that I have on there, Retro being a part of that, Jim being a part of that.
Shenanigans generally occur.
It's a very dysfunctional show, and that's
I am that so bitch part of it.
Saying you're my
Fucking integral.
You're my pit bull. You and Jim are like my pit bull and Rottweiler, man. You guys
I don't get it. I'm a very nice person.
just start attacking in that stuff. And listen, I appreciate it, guys. Love you both in that. But the thing is, with this show here, okay, I don't want this show coming off as being about console wars and that. It's me sitting there and saying, because
no, it's not about console wars. It's about correcting misinformation and giving the correct information, and that's what all these shows are about.
Right, and see, that's why. Okay, the last show that we had back in December, we had Hamp on as special guest, and Luke was on with us, and David being a part of the panel. They both David and Hamp kind of got lumped into where they're like Sony fanboys and that, and it's not. They're giving you Hamp is a part of the industry, which we'll have Hamp on next week. And that's going to be another, really informational show, because we have Hamp and Deezy and Deli, Age of Deli, and we have NX Gamer all going to be on it, kind of like a developers roundtable where we can sit there and ask them questions in that about developing games for these consoles and things like that. And this is one of the things that I want to bring up is, to them, what is their opinion about, the liquid metal in that. But the show is about giving you the information, giving Ray Rock, giving Twisted Sin, giving, Wolfkey and everybody else, and Callie and that. I see all you guys in the chat, Sammy, giving you information to say, here is the information. You do what you want to do with it. This is there's fact. This is factual information. Okay. With the data, and Hamp sits there and says it a lot. And so does David. As long as they have the data in front of them, they're going to give you the best possible answer. Now, if you sit there and say, hey, this is what's going on today, and then they give the answer, and then you come back to them tomorrow and say, well, no, you're wrong, because all of a sudden you got new data and didn't bother giving them any of it. Well, of course, they're going to be wrong because they don't have all the information. It's like when you go to trial. If the lawyers don't have all the information that they need, well, and one side does, well, the one side's, of course, going to win. because they got all the information. This is the show is I have Jim here. I have William here. Retro has a lot more background on this than I do. It's me sitting here asking the questions. David's on here. Zuby Tech is going to be on here pretty soon. And then Dewalf is going to be on here. All these guys, they got a better knowledge of what's going on than I do. It's for me to sit there and ask the questions. It's also for the chat to sit there and ask questions. Ask questions that you guys want to know. William, is there going to be acquisitions? Jim, what's your gaming looking like? Retro, what's your favorite fighting games? Whatever it is. Just ask the question. These guys are willing to sit there and answer it for you. Just don't use it for console war stuff, because the thing is, when you sit there and you see Biscuits and Gravy, you see a Fornitron, you see these guys coming out and they're putting that tweet out. The reason why they're putting that tweet out is to get your attention. And when you go and you feed into that, okay, you sit there and you have an answer to that. Well, this is what's going on. Like I sat there and I sent out retweeted Risket's tweet and then put KY Bob in there. That wasn't me trying to start a console war. That's me sitting there saying, for KY Bob, maybe I don't know what the man does for a living. Okay. I have no idea what Callie, shut up. I love cornbread and it goes great with beer. But the thing is, when I sit there and I put out that tweet, it's KY, tell me what kind of a background you have to state what you stated. Do you put these consoles together? Do you work on these consoles? Things like that. Tell me, I'll shut up. If I'm wrong or whatever, hey, I'm fine with being wrong. I don't care. Because it's me. When I'm wrong, it's me learning. That's the only way that I learn. But don't come off on shows, your own show, somebody else's show, and say, hey, yeah, I keep hearing Sony is selling their movie division the day after they make a deal with Legendary, and I keep shoving this into everybody's face. The day after they make a deal with Legendary Pictures, and this person goes out and says, yeah, Sony's pictures is possibly getting sold off. When if the article, if he's quoting the article that I think he is, the man has no research skills. The man has no reading comprehension skills, because Sony was selling, and William, maybe you can, back me up on this because you might have more knowledge in it. Sony was selling, and I think they did sell off their streaming platform. They shut that down, but not their movie division.
Yeah.
Not their movie division.
Well,
and then here's another thing, and we'll get into it because I'm going to ask William these questions. William, here's two questions that I kept on hearing over Christmas, and maybe you could help me understand this. Again, I'm not sitting here saying this for console war, but tell me that I'm wrong on this, or tell me that the opinion is wrong. Here are two things that are being pushed out because these people hate Sony. Okay. One has been pushed out that Sony has a monopoly because they have Crunchyroll and Funimation, and they have a monopoly in the anime field. Okay. And it's a good thing Zuby Tech just jumped in because he can also help with this. Also, I have heard that Sony has a monopoly with their movie division. Okay. And Sony also has a monopoly in Europe because they own, or they have 70 or over 70% of the market share for video games in Europe. So with these three, apparently Sony is the monopoly and not Microsoft Xbox. So William, go ahead and chime in. Let me introduce Zuby Tech. Zuby, it's great to have you here, Nat. I'm sorry that you jumped into a little bit of I guess you could kind of say awful opinion in that. But I'll let William jump in, and then you can have the microphone on if you need me to. I'll ask you the same 3 questions in that about Sony having a monopoly everywhere.
All right. Well, first
How
of
are you
all,
doing, Zuby?
go ahead.
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. How are you guys?
We're doing so far so good.
Yeah, that's good to hear. Thanks for the invite.
We haven't
again.
smashed our faces into the wall yet.
Not yet. Well, by the end of the show, I think there's going to be plenty of people smashing their faces in the wall, especially with what Zuby, William, and David.
That's why I said yet.
Yeah. So let's stress that word. But William, so I'm going to pose those 3 questions to you real quick.
Yeah.
What is your thoughts on that?
All right. So first of all, I want to address the first thing that you mentioned, about the streaming thing. PlayStation Productions, or PlayStation, the division that does movies and TV shows, is not going away. That's only going to grow. That's actually growing. What happened was they sold this. They used to have a thing called Crackle, which was like a competitor to Netflix / Tubi TV, or Pluto TV. There was a streaming service called Crackle they used to own that was Sony owned. They sold that. But the reason they sold that is because they're going to be building something brand new soon when they merge. And then this goes on to your other thing about the accusation of monopoly in the anime industry. When they merge Funimation and Crunchyroll completely, they might even merge. They might even make a new streaming service that merges with their live action movies. This is just speculation. They might not do that, but and so they don't really need Crackle, and Crackle wasn't even a really good service to begin with. So that they just sold off Crackle, but their PlayStation Productions, or Sony Pictures, is only going to grow from here. They're making, on the PlayStation side of the movies, they're making like 10 different TV shows and movies in cooperation with other platforms for their PlayStation related content, and that's on top of all the IP in live action that's not video game related that they own, that they're making movies for. Now, the accusation on anime. Sony does not have a monopoly on anime, mainly because there are still competitors like High Dive, which is the exclusive place to watch Legend of the Galactic Heroes, which is my favorite anime, the original Legend of the Galactic Heroes. There's High Dive. Netflix has exclusive anime. There's a few others. Yes, Sony is the biggest, especially when they merge Funimation and Crunchyroll. And Katakawa, they're in a financial alliance with Katakawa, which produces a large amount of anime. Katakawa, the owners of From Software. And a lot of that goes on to Crunchyroll and Funimation. And so, yes, they do have market dominance, but they don't have a monopoly. But the reason why they have market dominance is because they are the best. This is the same with you're talking about Europe, where they have 70% penetration. It's like, well, they have 70% penetration because they make the best video games. They have the best exclusives. So of course, and another thing is a lot of the people in America, because like Xbox is majority focused America, and the people that buy Xbox are going to be the people that care most about Madden and first-person shooters. And Madden football, or American football, only has mass penetration in the United States, whereas the entire rest of the world cares about FIFA, or football English sense, or other words, in soccer in American. And so in Europe, soccer, or European football, is so much bigger than Madden.
No. Wait, I have to correct you here. Just football. We invented it. It's our sport. That's what we named it. Okay?
So,
I'm just saying.
Soccer, or I get. I know.
I'm just playing. I do it all the time. Sorry.
Yeah. but yeah, this is the point. So if you have a console that like Xbox, where you have a few shooter exclusives like Halo, Gears, and you have a racing game, Forza, and you're eventually going to get all the Western RPGs from Bethesda, Exile, Obsidian, etc. But that wasn't the reason why people bought Xbox before. It was mostly a third-party box because it didn't have that many big exclusives. And all of those games are American focused. Call of Duty is definitely American focused. I mean, it's the biggest shooter in the entire world, but it's still American focused. And then you have Madden, which is on PlayStation as well, but you have these sports games that have bigger penetration on Xbox, but these sports games are more American focused. Then in the entire rest of the world, especially Europe, where they don't care about American football, they care about European football, they care about soccer. That's going to have way more penetration. And you look at the most sold games in the entire world. The most sold games in the entire world are Call of Duty, FIFA, Madden, and not Gran Turismo is big, but I was going to say Grand Theft Auto is big. And these are the yearly sold games are going to be your sports games, Madden and FIFA. But FIFA's way bigger because it applies more to the rest of the world, whereas Madden is America focused. And then the other reason is, besides the sports, is just that PlayStation has the better exclusive games, and Xbox has been on the back heel since the 360 era, because we were waiting for good games all the way through Xbox One, and there were good games, but there were no games that competed one for one with the first party PlayStation games, and they're still waiting for that. If you look back at the 2015 E3 for PlayStation when they announced Final Fantasy VII, that E3 was that the 2015 and 2016 E3s for PlayStation were some of the best showcases for video games of all time. And even back then, people were talking about how Xbox needs to catch up. Xbox needs to catch up. That was like 10 years ago, and they're still behind. And Xbox's plan to catch up is to become the market dominant leader in Western RPGs. So right now, Sony PlayStation is the market dominant leader in several key areas. And the way that Xbox is planning to catch up is to also become a market dominant leader. And their position will be market dominant leader in Western RPGs. Games like the games from Obsidian, the games from Bethesda, the games from In Exile, your Wasteland, your Fallouts, your Elder Scrolls, and your Starfields, all that. So this is the area that Xbox is cornering the market. They're not. That's not saying they have a monopoly on Western RPGs, because anyone can make a Western RPG, but they're going to have the mass majority of the Western RPG. And so PlayStation is going to have to counter that eventually. They're going to have to build their own Western RPGs or buy studios that make Western RPGs in order to counter that. And that's how Xbox is going to grow in Europe and in all these places where they lack, is by being the best. If Xbox becomes the best Western RPG console, then they'll have something to say for themselves worthy of penetrating the market. Right now, for the last 20 years, the reason why they haven't penetrated the market in Europe or Japan is because PlayStation has the best exclusives that appeal to those markets, and that's just the facts of it.
So, Zuby, I'm not too sure if you actually were able to hear the three sort of questions that I asked Will.
Accusations.
Yeah, accusations. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. But were you able to hear any of those accusations by chance?
Was it one that Sony has a monopoly?
Yeah, Sony has a monopoly apparently in anime. Sony has a monopoly across Europe and everywhere else with over a 70% market share. And then Sony also is a monopoly when it comes to the movies, which that there, I saw an article. Somebody went and posted an article from 2013 that Sony was the most dominant movie production movie place. Again, 2013 when we're in 2022, 2023. But how would you like to answer that?
Yeah, to be honest, like monopoly is such a strong word.
Yeah.
Having market shares is not a monopoly. That's
Exactly.
two totally different things.
Exactly.
Like what you just said about the 70% market share, that's a fact. Like in some European countries, PlayStation does have that much market share, but that's because like Xbox, they don't even compete there. They don't have like a office there, like in Spain. They don't have offices where they can like localize their software, talk with developers. Microsoft don't have that for Xbox. They have like offices for Microsoft, but not for Xbox. And that's the reason why PlayStation is so dominant. If you're not going to compete in that area, what's the competition going to do? They're going to increase their market share. But that's not a monopoly. Monopoly means that PlayStation is the only one in that market. That's not true, because games are sold worldwide in every country. PlayStation is sold worldwide in every country. Plus, you got PC, which is such a big platform where you can access like 90% of third-party games on PC as well. So, and about the anime, I'm not too sure about the anime, but again, like that's a Sony again. They bought Crunchyroll. That's a fact, but I'm not sure I can answer that really much. I'm not a anime person, to be honest, but yeah, again, like Sony, if you look at Sony's model, they want to increase their production, like they want to distribute everywhere, and you can see on their like presentations as well. They've explained it, like they don't want to compete with Amazon Prime, Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus. They want to actually be on the back end of that. They want to provide content for it. So again, that's not a monopoly. So if they're providing content which is distributed everywhere, where you can access everywhere, that's not a monopoly. So yeah, is monopoly is such a strong word. And again, I don't think Sony would ever have a monopoly on the market, wherever, even in Europe, where they're number one. And I don't think they've ever had. But people are gonna make accusations about Sony. So it is what it is, in my opinion. But market share is totally different. Because even if you see Sony's strategy, they're going to PC. That's their games getting available even more places. More people can access it. There's so many devices where you can access Steam on now, like laptops, hybrid devices, tablets. Like the hardware is actually like a tablet, and you can play Steam on it. Steam Deck. There's loads of Chinese brands that are doing handhelds now as well. So it's totally far from the truth. Having market share is not a monopoly, in my opinion. And what was the third one? Sorry, you said?
There was the anime, the movie division, and
yeah.
the movie division. They've been dominant, but here's the thing, and let me ask both you and William on this. When you sit there, and I've heard Ham talk about this with the cell phone companies, how there was mass consolidation with the cell phone companies, so it's not giving you that much of a variety of cell phone carriers to go to. But then also the movies, and me being, I'm a huge movie buff. Ever since I've been born, my mother-in-law gives me a whole bunch of crap, and also my wife a whole bunch of crap, because my son watches his pad, and it brings me back to when my grandparents were giving my mom and dad a bunch of crap because of how much TV I watched. But it's kind of, I'm like, well, that's what I have growing up. You gotta take it away sometimes, but I'd rather have him sitting here watching a pad than going out and doing what was on the news this morning. Apparently, a 6-year-old went in Virginia and shot his teacher, a 6-year-old who is 1 year younger than what my son is. Okay. I listen, if that gets him from not doing stupid shit like that, he could sit here all he wants on that thing. But with the movies, Zuby, it's like, okay, so Sony came in, they bought, I think it was Columbia Pictures in the late 80s, early 90s. It might have been like 89, 90, or 91, something like that. And, they did the music thing, and they got into Columbia with the music and that. But I mean, when you have consolidation in the movies and people sit there and they complain because there isn't anything original in that, well, that's because of consolidation. When you sit there and you take these companies, these movie companies, and they start buying all these small places, A24 and Fox. Fox had I think it was Searchlight Studios. That's part of it. But these lower tier, they go and they consolidate. Yeah, they're these companies. They're only worried about the big ticketed movie. They're not worried about those low budget. When you used to go to like a West Coast Video, I don't know if if that was a national chain. West Coast Video, Blockbuster, Hollywood Video. You used to sit there and get the movies that went straight to the rental place. You don't have that much anymore. I mean, it's kind of weird, but that was the other thing, Zuby. So go ahead. I cut you off on that.
No, it's fine. Yeah, again, like the Sony's distribution model is they've got no control over how much, like I said, movies. Like they want consumers to go and watch movies in theaters. They don't really want a streaming only future. So again, they're not really controlling that. They've partnered again with Lionsgate for their movie. So there's a lot of partnerships being made. So I don't think, again, monopoly is such a strong word. Like they're not controlling like the movie market. They're looking for partners to distribute their content. Like again, like Amazon Prime and all those places after it's appeared on the theater. Sorry.
There's Paramount. There's
Let me
WB.
William, let me cut you off real quick because
Yeah.
David. Sorry, William. I just want to make sure I can hear David and that. David, how are you doing, sir? Sorry, I saw your message in the chat. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing quite well, thank you. How are you?
Not too bad. I'm actually going to turn you up. William, go ahead and finish your point.
Who invited that upside down fella in?
The upside down fella.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
He's Australian. He's upside down.
Oh,
Well, we got two of them coming because the wolf just DM'd me and he said he's on the way too. William, you finish up your point because then what I'm going to do is, David, I'm going to shoot you to 3 accusations that I with Zuby and William about Sony and that, and I want to get your thoughts on that, and then we're going to roll right into predictions and everything else. But William, go ahead and finish up on your point.
well, the best argument for Sony having a monopoly in anything would be in anime because they own Funimation Crunchyroll now. But even that is still not a monopoly, mainly because High Dive exists as a competitor, and now it's smaller, but it has exclusive content. In order to have competition in the first place, you have to have exclusive content that the other platform doesn't have. If you don't have, this is why exclusivity is important, because if exclusivity doesn't exist, then all of the market will go to one of every product or service, because they will just go to the one that's most user friendly, unless there is another one that might not be as user friendly but has better exclusive content. And then there's different things that can drive competition. You have competition in ease of use, competition in cost, and competition in content. These are the 3 different ways that you can have competition. And if you don't have competition in content, then everyone is just going to go to the one that's the cheapest and the easiest to use. And so this is why exclusivity, which is a side topic, is important. Now, on the anime side, they still don't have a monopoly just because High Dive exists, and a monopoly means you are the only one in the specific industry. And Netflix also has exclusive anime content. And then another thing, what originally Crunchyroll focused on subbed anime, as in anime with words on the bottom of the screen that you read, where they speak in Japanese but you read it in your language. And then Funimation focused on dubbed anime, which is speaking it in your native language instead of in Japanese. And now with them combined, we can now have the best of both worlds. When they combine into one anime platform, we will finally be able to pick dubbed or subbed for all of our favorite animes and the upcoming future animes. High Dive also does this. They also do simulcasting, which is another word for dubbing and subbing new anime that's exclusive to High Dive at the same time. And that's the best argument for any monopoly, because when it comes to movies, like live action movies, PlayStation or Sony is one of the is a big one, is a huge one, but it's smaller compared to Disney and Disney, which bought 20th Century Fox, and then you have Paramount, which is a combination of Viacom and CBS when they merged together, and then you have Warner Brothers, which is a merger which merged with I forget who they merged. Discovery, yeah, Warner Bros. And Discovery merged. So you have Disney, you have Paramount, you have Warner Bros. Discovery, and then you have Sony, and and if there used to be each one of those four used to be two separate companies. So you used to have like 8 big giant companies, but now you have like these 4 big ones.
Right.
But of all of these, Sony is smaller than all 3 of the other 3. So it's definitely not a monopoly in live action.
But and like I was sitting there saying to you, Will, this was an article from 2013 when we didn't even. But the thing is if you're going to cite an article from 2013, that's not a good look. That's not a good idea because you're not. That's 10, 8, 9, 10 years ago. Things have definitely changed. Okay. Yeah. It's the way they movies and everything else and that what I want to do is Dewalf, how are you doing today, sir? Want to make sure he's all good. Dewalf, can you actually hear us? He's in here, but I don't hear him.
It took me 30 minutes to get the audio to work on this restream thing, because I can't even use my mic on my phone. I have to use my phone's mic. I can't use my headset.
Yeah, so. We're going to be, like I said, we're going to be switching back over to Discord. I'm just having way too many issues with the panel on that. So what I
don't even know if my audio quality is good right now because I'm literally talking through my phone instead of my headset.
Oh no, you sound very good. You sound very, very good. Okay, so while we're waiting for Dewolf to come in and I'm looking at the DMs real quick to make sure if he needs help or anything like that. David, what I'm going to do is I want to pose this question to you, and then after you're done, I'm going to go right in with Zuby on this whole gaming predictions, things like that. What we can say. So, David, the 3 accusations that I've been hearing is since Sony has Crunchyroll and Funimation, they have a monopoly in the anime sector. They have a monopoly in the movie sector because of how their movies have been, doing at the box office. And then they also have let me make sure I get this right. A monopoly in Europe and basically across the rest of the world because they have more than a 70% market share or something like that across Europe. How do you respond to those three accusations?
The anime one, they're not even close to having a monopoly. Trying to watch Pokemon on Crunchyroll. It's Crunchyroll is a distribution platform, but 80-90% of the stuff that's on there, Sony don't own that content. A lot of it comes from other third parties. So it's how can you claim that they've got a monopoly when it's just a distribution platform and they don't have the power or the ability to dictate whether that stuff is or is not on there? They had now the whole Dragon Ball franchise series of shows were on there for a while, then they weren't, and then they were, and then they weren't, and then they were, and they've never had Pokemon on there. They've not had what's it called? Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood hasn't been on there for ages, and it's only in certain regions where you can see some of the things, and a lot of regions they can't because of deals with places like Netflix and Amazon and a heap of others. So if they had a monopoly, that'd be the only place you could go to watch it, and it wouldn't be anywhere else, and it wouldn't be coming on and off the channel all the time. So it's claim that they have a monopoly on the anime is pretty ridiculous considering they don't create 60 to 70% of it, and they certainly don't control anywhere near that much either.
David, can I cut you off for 1 second? Let me see if Dewalf, because he's having problems with his mic. Wolf, can you hear me? And I'm not too sure. He says he's having problems with his microphone. It says that he's lighting up and everything, but I don't even see his avatar.
Yeah. My mic doesn't work on this either.
Dewolf, if you know what, continue David on that. Let me see if I can. I'm gonna go on mute for a minute and see if I can talk him through this. So you guys go ahead.
Yep. What was the second question about the movies?
Yeah.
Yeah, Sony's not even close.
There was a thing where there was an article put out in 2013 that Sony was like the number one movie company in that, but somebody came out and said that Sony Pictures is a monopoly too because of everything with Spider-Man, the way that's going. I guess they've been having success. You have Cobra Kai, I think, is with Sony and some other properties, but that was put out there.
Yeah, because Spider-Man's bigger than the whole Marvel Cinematic Universe, right? Yeah, all right, cool. So somebody's talking out their ass. There's no metric that matters. Is Sony a monopoly in anything? Music, movies, streaming, any of it. Sony doesn't dominate on any metric anywhere. That's worth noting. But if you want to narrow it down to where Sony's basically the only one involved, like saying Sony dominates because of Spider-Man movies in Spider-Man movie, it's pretty ridiculous. What was the third one? You'll have to forgive me. It's bloody early over here.
The third one was you got the anime. 70% market share in Europe. That Sony has a monopoly in Europe because they have over a 70% market share
of what?
Of the gaming industry.
Really? 70% of the gaming industry in Europe. Huh. That's interesting. Does that make you them a monopoly? Well, I suppose if you looked at it from one perspective, you could say yes, it's potential, but there's plenty of other choice. Usually when a monopoly is involved, you can either choose that one company or go without. And as far as I'm aware, in Europe, you've still got the choices of going to Xbox or Switch or PC or something like that. So
They still have the option to go to. Plus, they're doing that without taking into account Nintendo. But let's put that to the side. Where
Uh-oh.
Nintendo is literally dominating literally everything. So let's stop that bullshit.
I'm gonna cut
But
everybody off real quick. Dewalf, can your symbol is up?
Are you there? Can you hear me?
Ah, there we are. There we are. Good.
I
Okay.
was using Firefox. That was a problem.
Wolf, I'm going back to Discord. This is too dysfunctional right here. So I'm going to make it a lot easier when we do the next show next week. So we don't have these damn problems. I'll be working long and hard for, well, that came out the wrong way. I'll be working very diligently to make sure everything is good for next week. But who the hell did I just cut off?
David.
I just cut off David. David, I'm sorry. I cut you off, but continuing that. I don't want to screw you guys up.
No, it's all good. We're just saying that in any metric that matters across anything that Sony's involved in, really, they don't dominate or lead or have a monopoly on anything. If you want to talk specifically about gaming, they don't lead in units sold. Nintendo's absolutely spanking them in that. They don't lead in physical games sold. Nintendo's spanking them in that. They don't lead in digital games sold. They get beaten by PC in that. They don't lead in terms of revenue anymore because Tencent's gone past them pretty quickly. They don't really, they're top 2 or 3 in everything, but they don't lead everything or anything really. And to sit back and claim that they've got a monopoly on anything that they're involved in is just rubbish. There's everything that Sony is involved in terms of consumer sale, what they sell to consumers. They don't have. They're not the only one you can go to. So,
Okay. All right. So what I'm going to do is I got 3 gentlemen here. I want to make sure Retro, Jim, and Wolf, you guys got any questions for any of these gentlemen? Make sure you chime in and ask them in that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with Zuby and go right William and David in that. 2023, big year. I'm figuring maybe I don't know, but with these 3 gentlemen, they have, I guess you can say, their ear to the floor. They're listening. They're hearing everything. You have Sony, 30 million consoles sold. You have Sony coming out in CES. Here is your PSVR. We have 30 games at launch. By the way, throwing this one to you, to Mr. Retro, we have Gran Turismo 7 that is going to be on the PSVR.
He only won the Maz.
Well, what was the other game that they're bringing back? Something Blade?
Beat Saber.
Beat Saber. Thank you, Zuby. This is the reason why I have these gentlemen here, because I'm stupid. But okay, so what I'm going to do is I'll ask this first because everybody loves talking about this. The first question I'm going to ask the 3 of you gentlemen is acquisitions. Do we see any kind of acquisition from Sony this year, despite the ABK thing? And it kind of, between Xbox, Microsoft, and PlayStation, I guess it kind of got, them not scared, but they're holding back. With that being said, do you guys see any kind of acquisitions going on this year? Zuby, you started off with that.
Oh.
Sorry, I'm gonna roll right around. You're next, sir. But Zuby, do you see anything going on with that?
Yes, definitely. Like what I can say is like they delayed some of their acquisitions from last year. So I'm not sure when it's going to be completed, but definitely 2023 there will be some PlayStation acquisitions. 100%.
Okay. William, this is pretty much your expertise. Go for it, man.
Yeah, so they hired. I know you guys know this story, but for a refresher, last year they hired a guy specifically to do acquisitions specifically for PlayStation. Um, and this lawyer was he's renowned in the industry for acquisitions and for business control. And so there's going to be massive PlayStation acquisitions in this year and in the coming year. And they're putting aside a massive amount of money that they haven't even spent yet for acquisitions. They have a bunch of money from mergers, acquisitions, and investments that they still have not spent, that they've been holding back on spending all this time. And every new year, they're going to get more money in that pot because it's going to roll over. Because if they don't spend the money, it's not like the money goes away. It just rolls over into the next year. And so they have a ton of money that they're just building for this. And on my Twitter, you can follow me at William R. Aguilar. I have 13 mega threads of different things, and anytime there's new infographics or new information, it'll be uploaded at the top, and then eventually it'll go into one of the 13 mega threads that it applies to. One of the mega threads I have is specifically dedicated to future possible acquisitions for Sony PlayStation, or investments with controlling interest or uh, influencing stakes. And so, for example, they have investments with Konami and Bloober Team for a bunch of games. They signed deals with Konami a couple of years ago for a bunch of games. And that's not owning Konami, but they have license rights and distribution rights for a bunch of games. And so that doesn't count as acquisitions, but it counts as investments. And then for actual acquisitions, there's tons of studios that are making third-party studios right now that are making first-party content or second-party games for PlayStation. You have studios like Mutan, Deviation, Firewalk, um, Jetpack. I think Unseen is doing one. That you have, I think there's actually so many that I'm losing count of how many are doing second party and third party exclusive games for PlayStation. And a lot of them are done with XDev, which is external developments, and which is a studio in PlayStation dedicated to making games like games PlayStation owns, but being made by third party developers or second party developers that are not directly owned by PlayStation. And XDev has, I think, like 15. Zuby Tech has done a fantastic job on listing all of the different studios and what they're working on. I love your work, Zuby. Great work. And one of them shows all the different things that XDev is doing. And then on my list of possible acquisitions, I go in detail on. I have them listed from likely or to 50-50 to possible to unlikely. And I have basically every single studio or almost every single major studio in the entire world on this list. And I have them listed in this order of likely, 50-50, possible, and unlikely for PlayStation to acquire them. And then underneath that on this mega thread, I go case by case on specific studios and why they may or may not be acquired. And if you're interested in that, I encourage you to look it up on my Twitter. It's the one specifically focused on possible acquisition. It's a giant blue thing with a bunch of white text on it. You can't miss it. I think that there are a lot of deals coming for PlayStation that people are going to be surprised about. And specifically in the case of Square Enix, they may or may not be fully acquired, but I do believe that even if they are not fully acquired, they will have major investment by PlayStation. Because in Square Enix's latest financial report, they said that they were open to partial ownership of their specific studios. And if you remember from software, was similar, where PlayStation bought a percentage of from software along with Tencent for influencing stakes in from software, and they could do a similar thing with Square Enix's studios. And this has been my theory for a long time, where a lot of people are saying that they're going to that PlayStation is just going to fully acquire Square Enix. But I believe that's possible. But what's more likely is that PlayStation is going to buy a large percentage of specific creative business units or the different specific studios that do Final Fantasy, Kingdom Hearts, Dragon Quest, and things like that. And then Nintendo may also do similar for the studios that make 2D games, your HD 2D games that wind up on Nintendo Switch. And I believe that this year or next year, this isn't PlayStation related, but this year or next year, Nintendo will reveal their next gen console. Because Metroid Prime 4 is not coming to Nintendo Switch. It's coming to the next console. And I believe that might be revealed this year, next year. And when they reveal their next gen console, they're also going to have the capacity to have the power to have bigger games on their console, bigger third-party games. And that may, unless Square Enix is fully acquired by Sony, that will include several Square Enix games. And so this is why I believe that unless Sony fully acquires Square Enix, then Sony will buy partial ownership of specific studios that Square Enix owns. And then Nintendo may do that as well for other studios.
Okay, David?
Yeah.
Do you have any insight, any knowledge? Do you see Sony doing any kind of acquisitions this year?
Yeah. Sony will do a heap of acquisitions across multiple different parts of the businesses.
Okay.
If you want to talk specifically about gaming, though, I think what you'll find is there's a flavour for partnerships and investments rather than straight out buying out at the top end, at the bigger end of the industry. But they'll certainly do a heap of smaller acquisitions of smaller studios that fit within their plan and their project. So you might get another mobile or a couple of mobile ones like Savage. You'll certainly probably get another PC support one, similar to Nexus, or Nixes, sorry. I don't expect any major curveballs. I mean, there's chatter around could they get EA, or could they get Ubisoft, could they get Take-Two, or depending on results in other areas, could they get X, Y, and Z? It would be a bit of a waste of money for them to go and grab someone that big. I mean, Square Enix, as William was just talking about, is probably a great example. They don't need to buy Square Enix. They don't need that much deadwood and that big a headache. Because if they did buy Square Enix, Square makes a lot of its money off Nintendo games. I think there's 7 or 8 Nintendo Switch games this year alone, and that's Switch exclusives that have sold quite well. So there's, everyone says, oh, they should get Capcom, they should get, Sega, or they should get this. They don't need to. They don't need to go out and fully buy them, particularly the Japanese ones, because they're not going to lose their access to the games. And it's the supply of games which is critical. If you look at PlayStation as a whole, what they're doing to get their games, they're effectively just giving away dev kits at the moment to indie creators. You've heard it from Shuhei, heard it from Greg Rice, heard it from a heap of other people that run that, indie and third party, and Sean Benson, all those that get in there and see what they're doing. They've got people on the ground working with developers to get their pitches to Sony ready before they even pitch it to Sony. They've got their indie team is giving away, not selling or leasing, like giving away PS5 dev kits to indie developers saying, hey, that's a cool game. I like that game. Have you thought about putting it on console? What can we help to get it on a PS5? Here's a dev kit. Here's a phone number. Here's a contact point. Call these guys if you're having trouble with it. If you need help doing this or that, we've got it XDev or Visual Studios, or we've got, PlayStation Malaysia, PlayStation UK, PlayStation Australia, PlayStation US. We've got all these support places to help you with the tools. Plus, we've got links in with Unity, Unreal Engine 5, whatever engine you're going to use. We've got people who can help you shift your game from whatever you're developing it on, mainly PC, over to PlayStation. So they've got a massive supply of indie games and a massive supply of third-party games that they're securing. They don't need to go and spend money on massive corporate overheads to bring them on board, or spending money on IP, which they're never going to use. They're developing their own. People complain a lot about IP development. Oh, PlayStation just does sequels. No, they don't. They build plenty of their own original IP. Why do you think people complain so much about IP that they don't use anymore, like Killzone, Sly Cooper, and all those ones? They wouldn't have that complaint if PlayStation wasn't building its own new stuff. But they're not the only ones who do it. Xbox does it, Nintendo does it, PC does. They've all got their own pipeline. The biggest point of difference is that PlayStation has a ridiculously healthy and very well working pipeline of first, second, and third party game development, and the speed at which they get the games out and the volume at which they're able to get them produced to the platform is been quite impressive. 2023 is going to be an increase on that. It's just going to get more, bigger, faster, better. And anyone that they acquire, full-on acquisition, will only be to aid their broader plan from their mid-range plan. But I think you'll find there be a lot more partnerships. So it may be an investment in a studio. It may be an investment in a segment. It may be a agreement. It could be a multitude of things.
Okay, well. Let me start with the Wolf first. Do you have any questions for Zuby, William, or David on acquisitions? Anything that you would like to see, maybe Sony and throw it out there to them? Maybe it's a good idea, maybe it's a bad idea. Do you have anything to that you would like to ask?
Nothing in regards to specific acquisitions along that line. I do just want to ask David, like he mentioned about Square Enix not being acquired, and I do agree. But a lot of the narrative I've seen around is how Square Enix dumped all the Western developers to make them look more attractive to a buy from Sony. Do you agree with that, or what's your thoughts around that, David?
It can be perceived that way. I'm trying to think of a nice way of saying this. Square Enix is a bit of a basket case with its direction at the moment. Offloading the Western divisions for the money they got for them was pretty much just saying we're going to get rid of them rather than shutting them down. And a lot of that comes around because of just lack of pathway ahead for some of those studios. They didn't have a lot of games in the pipeline. Clearly, like Crystal Dynamics made Guardians of the Galaxy. Made that game, did okay, didn't really set the world on fire, and then proceeded to sit around and pretty much do not much for a while. And then suddenly we hear Crystal Dynamics is working on Perfect Dark, and then that's it. We don't hear what their next game is. They don't have any big blockbusters. They got bugger all support for Guardians of the Galaxy lined up. There's another game they were working on that got shelved and just didn't have a lot of forward momentum, like future playing out in front of them. And then, unless they actually included that the IP that they did when they did that sale, they would have offloaded those 3 studios. I think it was somewhere around 50 million or less than $50 million. So there wasn't a lot of pipeline there that they were selling, so to speak. And clearly Square Enix has got its eyes set on other more lucrative markets than trying to compete with Western action. So yeah, it can be seen as they're postulating to be acquired by cutting out a heap of the underperforming segments, but they're not. They weren't underperforming because they weren't trying. They're underperforming because of management and leadership issues. So I think those studios will do really well under Embracer Group. Clearly, they're doing okay because is it Crystal Dynamics is doing Tomb Raider, being funded by Amazon. So, and that's going to be multi-platform. That's already known. So again, there's a game that PlayStation is very likely to get pretty early, if not on day one. And I don't think. My personal perspective of it is that Square Enix, as well as some of the other Japanese ones, have trimmed themselves up to try and deal with the issues related to global economic pressures, particularly around foreign exchange and some other working conditions for the organizations. There is a big push in Japan from the government to get a lot of their companies to come back to Japan rather than spread out even more. So there'll be there won't be the only ones who do it. There'll be others that will contract back to being predominantly Japanese based. But unless there is someone making a massive bid to buy them out from under Sony and it cuts off their supply, then there's only 2 companies that could do that. One that would. They're basically just set themselves up so that they're more further protected by and shielded by the Japanese government and Japanese lenders.
Mr. Retro, do you have anything to ask these fine gentlemen?
No, I don't care about acquisition next year. I'm going to be playing Gran Turismo in VR, mate.
Okay. Okay. Jim, do you have anything to that you would want to ask? Jim?
Um,
Oh, there he is.
No, not really. I mean, I'm just waiting to see what 2023 brings. I mean, it's a fresh year, so just kind of waiting to see what happens.
Okay.
It's gonna be a big year for game announcements.
Well, okay. William, you're starting to come in like a little crackly and that stuff. But I'm going to actually throw this out to all 3 of you gentlemen, and it's going to go right into the next question that I have, which is games. With me and acquisitions, I don't want to see Sony or Xbox buy any development studio, Square Enix, Capcom, EA, Devolver Digital, whoever it is. Okay. And the reason why is I don't like the idea of it. It's just my opinion. But what I would like to see, and I said something Friday night about this, is don't acquire, a studio. Maybe go out and acquire IP. So we have Sony that is helping with the development with Bloober Team. I think William sat there and said it. Zuby mentioned it too, that they're helping out with Silent Hill 2. I sat there and said Friday night, I would love for them to see, and William, you actually sat there and said something about, with Sony and being together with Konami, is Castlevania doing a Castlevania Order 1886 mashup where it's involved in the same universe. Order 1886 is in the same universe as Castlevania, we'll say. The Metal Gear thing. I know WB has they bought, and correct me if I'm wrong, but they originally bought Midway because Mortal Kombat was with Midway and they bought them years ago. Am I correct on that? or wrong?
Uh,
Whoever wants to answer on that one. Anybody? Nobody? Am I the
I don't
only
know.
one here? I hope I'm not the only one here.
Let's
No.
just assume.
Go ahead, David.
So just assume that you're correct and continue.
Okay. All right. But I went out and I bought and I've peddled this game for God knows how long too. The Suffering. Friday night I was sitting there and I put out footage of Army Men 3D. I just recently bought the Sarge's Heroes PlayStation 1 game in that. But I would like for them to go and maybe do deals to where maybe they have some kind of ownership or something like that to where they can get like IP and make the IP, whether it's, exclusive for a year or 2 years and that, and then it goes to PC and Xbox, whatever it is. It doesn't bother
There's
me, but
definitely going to be more of that. There's going to be, but like David was saying, like when I was talking about acquisitions, I think most acquisitions that are going to happen are going to be smaller studios. But when you're talking about IP, not like as opposed to giant publishers, I think that it'll be more smaller studios as opposed to giant publishers. But then for IP, they're going to do, and on that list that I was talking about, where I have um, different studios and publishers organized by likelihood of acquisition, there's a separate section of that same list that deals with specifically license deals and exclusivity deals, which isn't like owning the IP or owning, the thing, but actually just paying to have to help develop IP that's been dormant, or help develop new IP, or help develop things that people want, but make it exclusive to PlayStation. And there is a list on, there's a list on my infographic specifically for that, and there will be more of that. There will definitely be more games, IP that PlayStation is paying to have developed or co-develop or help develop that will be exclusive to PlayStation.
okay.
And so you will see more of that as opposed to full acquisitions of studios that make that IP.
Okay, so then going into this whole game stuff, with Silent Hill, you have the DLC for Horizon and things like that. This is the one big thing, and I wanted actually, I'm going to see if Dewalf has. I think he has a lot of questions to ask us. But the PSVR thing, PSVR 2 coming out, you have the Horizon thing, you have Gran Turismo, you have 30 games or over 30 games in that. Possibility of Half-Life Alyx, whatever. I don't know. That's just hearsay. But DeWolf, going into games, did you have any questions on with the PSVR for Zuby, William, and David on, what is going on, what games we can actually, can we expect this year between PSVR and also other games coming out this year? I mean, ask these guys, what you feel.
I suppose with the PSVR stuff, I'm just super excited to find out what we're going to get. And I know we've got 30 games that have been announced for us so far. What I'd really like to ask these guys is what their prediction is of how successful PSVR 2 especially is going to be, and how it might actually change the gaming landscape. Because I think PSVR or VR in general has always been considered a niche market and a little tacked on gimmick. But I think with PSVR 2, we're going to see a real change in the way we consume games and experience games. And I know, me and Dave's talked a lot, me and Retro's talked a lot about the immersive experiences, which is what I'm really interested in. So I just want to know what they feel will be the impact of PSVR 2, especially on the overall game market. It's never going to take over flat screen gaming, I'm aware of that, but is it going to be anything bigger than what it currently is that we see?
I project that it'll be 2 to 3 times larger than PSVR 1. The PSVR 2 will sell 2 to 3 times more than the PSVR 1 did. And I believe that all the people that are saying, oh, everyone's going to go to Meta, I think they're going to realize that people are going to go to PlayStation because PlayStation is going to have the games that people want to play, whereas Meta doesn't have the exclusive games that people want to play. They did buy some studios. They bought Camouflage, which made the Iron Man game that Meta did, but there's still a lot more exclusive first and second and third party VR games coming to PlayStation VR 2 that have not been announced yet. They're going to blow people away. And another thing is I'm seeing a lot of people saying, well, you can get a bunch of games on the Steam VR or on the Meta VR. It's like, yes, but these are last gen VR devices. What PlayStation
Can we just
is making
remember that
is a
Insomniac
next-gen VR.
have a VR section to their studio, if you will. Insomniac.
Yes,
A lot of people seem to forget this.
a lot of games are going to have VR versions.
Oh,
Or if they don't have a VR version, a lot of the upcoming games will have VR subsections, like little sections that you can do that are VR.
Yeah.
And there's going to be a lot of these. There's also a lot of the first-person shooters that they're making. You're gonna be able to play those in VR too. The ones that haven't been announced yet. Yeah. So and the other thing is what I keep hearing people saying, well, what about the thousands and thousands of games that you can play on the VR devices that currently exist? Well, the difference is that PSVR 2 is a next-gen VR device, whereas Meta and HTC's thing and Steam's thing, these are all last-gen VR devices. The next-gen... So, here's an example. The last-gen VR devices, the best-looking games on last-gen VR devices are like PS3 games graphically in VR. Whereas the next-gen PSVR devices... the next-gen VR devices will be like PS4 graphical games in VR. And that's the graphical leap, the visual leap that you're going to see.
Can I cut in here right now? Because I want to ask you three gentlemen here. Sam Walton, I got the question up, and I want to ask you guys this too. PlayStation needs to bring back Home, which I think that is a great thing for the PSVR. Have any of you gentlemen heard that they might be bringing that back, possibly?
It's going to get rammed down for their metaverse, man. You watch.
I think
that turn that into a mad metaverse thing.
If that's not what Haven's doing, then something like that will come from someone else.
Because it technically was an early metaverse anyway, wasn't it? Let's be honest.
Yeah.
It was selling stuff through there. You could go to different products and different little mini games and stuff like that. So I think we're going to see it again. I think so.
Something like it will come.
Well, keep in mind before we move on or anything that while you are partially correct there on the whole, last gen stuff, some of these VR things do have a more updated version, like the Meta Quest 2 and Oculus Meta Quest 2 or whatever they want to call themselves. You've got improved things already hitting the market.
Mm-hmm.
But do they have the positive rendering and eye tracking? I know some of them have the inside eye tracking and stuff, but...
Yeah, but as long as you have any VR device that... Basically, any VR device that is cordless will always be graphically lower than a corded VR device.
That is correct.
So
I was just kind of adding to your point too, and just letting you know that there's new ones on the market too.
Yeah, and a lot of those updated versions will be easily ported over to PSVR 2. The updated versions of older games will be easily
because I just recently for the holiday got one of those Oculus Meta Quest 2s for from the family. So yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of people are saying, well, you could take the the new Meta Quest, the ones that are wireless, any wireless VR device will only be able to play last gen VR games because of the amount of data that has to stream.
Yeah.
Is
Well, I mean, technically, you can still play the current version of those games. It's just since you're doing it over wireless, you damn well better have a good router to handle the throughput that's going to be required, or you're going to be getting below the optimal FPS, which is going to cause motion sickness, which I think is like what 90 to 100 for optimum performance.
Yeah. Well, there's going to be motion. There's going to be frame rate problems. There's going to be data streaming for graphics problems, and there's going to be latency problems. So like let's take the Horizon game that's coming for PlayStation VR 2.
I'm just trying to keep it simple because I don't want to get too technical and lose our people in the chat because been there, done that before.
But real quick,
he's calling all you people in the chat dumb. He's calling you dummies.
Nah.
If you were to take
he's saying
if you were to take the Horizon game that's coming out, you wouldn't be able to play that on any device that is wireless because the graphics on it are just too good for that. So the next gen VR games that are going to come out that are going to push the hardware to its limits graphically, you are not going to be able to do wireless. Not until the next gen, not until like PSVR 3. Then those games you'll be able to do wireless when the technology catches up. But then you talk about like, oh well, you could take a Meta and then you can plug it into your PC and then it will be as powerful as the PSVR 2 or more powerful. It's like, but in order to do that, then you have to pay $2,000 for a PC that's comparable in power to the PS5, and you have to remember that you can't have the exact same specs as the PS5 in order for it to be comparable. You actually have to go one level or two levels above comparable specs to a console in order to match with the disparity in the PC's disparity in, I can't find the word I'm looking for, but there's a disparity in like if you had the same graphics card power in a PC and a console, console developers can go really into the weeds of that GPU in order to get the most out of it because all of the specs are the same for PlayStation 5. Whereas for
Can I just jump in? Just jump in for a sec. I'd just like to see what Zuby or Dave has to say. Not so much around the specs and that of the PSVR 2 and that, but how it's going to change the landscape of gaming and the potential impact. I mean, that's where I was kind of leading to.
Yeah, it'll be big. Go ahead, guys.
Zuby, why don't you jump in with the games and that stuff? I mean, what do you expect between PSVR and everything else?
Yeah, 100%. Like, is again, Sony looks at it more of like from the indie initiative, so there'll be like a lot of experimental titles still coming to PlayStation VR 2. So we'll get a lot of games with that. How it will be different from PlayStation VR is obviously a PlayStation VR 2 is much more. It's got a 4K screen, and that's the sort of features from PSVR 2 will help them like differentiate from like an indie title. In terms of like sales, but my personal prediction is like 2 to 3 million in 1 year. Again, Sony sees it as a add-on device from PlayStation 5 where it can basically extend PlayStation's ecosystem. In terms of that, in terms of the games as well, I think a lot of PSVR's old games are going to come to PSVR 2. So Astrobot, I've heard, is coming to PSVR 2.
David, anything from you?
There's a lot of cool little things that got shown off at CES that can link back into it. So obviously we've got the tech specs and we've got a list of games and stuff coming in PSVR 2, and we've got some others that are floating around, indie developers making these quirky little interactive games and trying. It's gaming is that adage of how do you put lightning in a bottle and then do it a second time. There might be some big production games that do okay, and there might be some little indie games that just turn into a massive hit. Like, Beat Saber wasn't touted to be anything massive when it got put out there, but it's one of the biggest games that's on there. The Call of the Mountain Horizon game looks intriguing. Obviously Gran Turismo 7 is going to be quite an interesting one to see how they get that thing running in VR, and how it works with whether you can tie your VR headset in with your sim rig, or whether you've steering wheel rigs and all that sort of stuff, or whether you've got to use the controllers, whether you use the controllers with the buttons, or you can turn your hands, or
David,
whether you've got to do
I'm
paddles.
going to tell you right this second, they will 100% going to allow you to use wheels.
I imagine they would, because you could with the last one, but
yeah, there's just no way they wouldn't allow the use with wheels, man. It's Gran Turismo we're talking about here.
Yeah, well, that's true. It'd be pretty cool if you had to do use your fingers.
Bro, I actually said that. I hope there's a finger tracking so I can throw my middle finger up at everyone. Just look over at them and just throw the finger up as you're driving past them. Be amazing.
It'd be funny as hell, because that's all you'd see of me coming past you all the time.
Yet to be determined, man.
To be determined. What I was thinking more was with the controllers. They've got the buttons on top, but they've said you can squeeze the handles on the controllers, and you can map. There's potentially the ability to put buttons on different of your index fingers and that sort of stuff for your trigger fingers. It'd be pretty interesting if you weren't using a wheel, but with these new controllers, that you've got to use them like a steering wheel, and you can use your what would be the shoulder trigger buttons as your flappy paddles for gear change up, gear change down, and just the immersion.
That'd be a really good idea, David.
So
that's
the sort of fun stuff that intrigues me as to what can they do with it. If you give them a platform with that much freedom, the controllers can do all that sort of stuff. There's other interactive games where you're picking stuff up and put stuff down. And again, different games for different people. There might be some games there that are, and it's going to sound really silly, but this could be a hit in the bottle. You don't know. Watering plants or tending a garden, or stuff that's fairly simple and straightforward everyday activities, but for people that are not able to access the outdoors, there might be stuff that gets made for them. The Wii Sports, bowling and badminton and baseball and all that sort of stuff. That might be something that's there. I'm not too sure that they'll have a lot of multiplayer VR stuff in terms of couch co-op VR, but you never know. There might be someone who comes up with a way of developing that. But yeah, there's all that cool sort of interactive and immersion that's there, but not just to gaming. If you look at what they talked about at their Sony CES presentation, this interactivity with live sport, putting PSVR live sport engagement, being able to chuck on a headset and watch a football game or some other sporting events. They also there's a few little things that Sony didn't talk about at their press conference, but very much, but they've had at CES. They've got this set of, I don't even know what you call them. They're like big buttons, and you put them at different points of your body, and there's a special camera that comes with it, and it's motion tracking. And you can set up a little motion tracking studio in your own home, and then that translates into an avatar or whatever it is in the metaverse, whatever their version of it is. So there's also the ability to combine your PSVR, potentially the ability to combine your PSVR 2 headset with the controllers, with these motion things, to then be able to interact in a live capacity inside whatever the metaverse thing is. So effectively, there are got the tools there to build a new PlayStation home or whatever you want to call it. And there's there could be a socializing aspect to that. There might be people buying this thing not to play games. There might be people buying this thing to go and do stuff with, their friends on whatever they're doing. You could be playing a game of virtual soccer. You could be going to watching Manchester City playing a Premier League game live, and you actually being in the, that's right. It's called Sony and Makopi. Thanks for that, Dewalf. There's all these other things that can be done with this platform that doesn't limit it just to VR games. And a lot of the other VR headset manufacturers are doing similar things, but the way that they interact with other products and the way that they can expand the creativity for the developers and for other people that just want to create stuff, Sony's making a screen where it's 3D and you don't need to have any glasses or peripherals or eyewear or anything for it to be 3D. There's a camera at the top of the screen that tracks your eye movements, and it'll just create, wherever you're looking on the screen, it pops up as a 3D image. So there's some chatter around there trying to get that in their Bravia TVs as an option, and that's one of the things that's held that back from being released, is they just haven't quite got it there yet. But if you've got a VR headset that's 3D already, or has the ability to be immersed in it in a 3D capacity, that's another layer of I don't know what you would call it, immersion, because you can't get any more immersed than being right in the middle of it. But if there's any further immersion available, then think about. Well, no, I shouldn't say think about it. I keep saying to people that I talk to about it, we can't imagine the stuff that they're going to come up with to be able to see or predict in our own minds, because it's just not comprehensible to us at the moment. There's stuff that we'll probably get in a couple of years' time that is completely inconceivable to anybody today, until somebody looks at it and goes, well, why can't we do that? And let's push the envelope. And that's where the indie developers tied in with the support of PlayStation and publishers, other mid-level publishers that have the flexibility to do it, the drive to do it, and they don't have a massive corporate overhead that they have to worry about sufficing. They're the ones that are probably going to tap the most power out of this thing. It's quite exciting. Quite exciting.
Retro, Jim, Wolf, do you guys have anything more on what kind of games are coming? Is there anything that you're interested in?
Gran Turismo 7 in VR. That's all you need to know. What else do you need?
Legacy Hogwarts.
Legacy Hogwarts. I heard that. Who said that?
That's the wife, man. She wants that shit in VR. I don't know why.
Yeah. Listen, tell her to grab the mic. We need some other opinion besides damn Gran Turismo.
She's going back into her cupboard. Shouldn't have talked. I didn't give permission.
That is so unfair. We can't do that.
It's just cutting in on my enjoyment. She has to stay in my limelight. Go back to your own thing. Leave me alone.
Oh wow! All right, so let me
ask you this. No, David made a point about the smaller kind of games and stuff that you wouldn't normally maybe be interested in. There's a game that Social pointed out called Kayak, and it's similar, where you basically just kayaking through all these awesome, lush-looking environments. But then there's also a multiplayer aspect where you've got to race each other like fuck, and it looks like the way you've got to use the controllers, or as if you've got the paddle in your hand, and you got to steer the kayak and stuff. Realistically, like with the controls. So that could be interesting.
Okay. Twisted Sin, he comes up and he wants to see a Twisted Metal. So let me real quick, because then I'm going to go into shows and that. So with Zuby, I want to start with Zuby on this. Have you heard anything? You keep hearing Resistance, you keep hearing SOCOM, you keep hearing Warframe, Twisted Metal. There's a TV show, that they're doing with Twisted Metal and that. So I'm assuming they're redoing the Twisted Metal game. Killzone, things, old Sony IP. I mean, have you heard anything? Maybe would they bring back Siphon Filter? Would they do like a remake or something like that of Sly Cooper, Jack and Dexter, things like that? Have you heard of Sony bringing anything from their back catalog out maybe in the next year or two or something like that? Have you heard anything about that? Oh, we lost Zuby. Okay, well, I'll get him back in that. Between William and David, have you guys heard anything? Sony bringing some of their back catalog, back here, because and I wanted to actually throw this out to both of you guys because of with financial backgrounds and that. Sam Walton sits there and says that he wants SOCOM. I heard last month that it was Colin Moriarty sitting there saying the reason why they don't have a Resistance, a SOCOM, a Killzone is because of them putting all this money into, bringing those franchises back. That's the reason why they're so, into Call of Duty is because Call of Duty makes them all this money that they don't even have to put any money into the Call of Duty franchise. Is that true? And is it true that that's the reason why Resistance, Killzone, SOCOM isn't, they're not bringing them back?
Well,
I'll-
David, you want to go first?
Yeah, just really quickly. So Call of Duty, in the last full financial year, Call of Duty made about $500 million in revenue for Sony. That sounds like a big number, and it is a big number, but it's only 2% of their overall revenue. So that's not too bad for not lifting a finger, but it's not completely irreplaceable. But if you were trying to replace, and that's not including the number of consoles that it sells. So, if you had tacked on a percentage estimate for that, you're probably saying it gives them another 150 million in console sales. So 2.5% of their total revenue. But anyway, that's the sort of financial gain it gets. But thinking about how many different versions of the same genre are available, if you're going to build a game, you want something that is either giving you a new twist or the next step in a particular genre, or you're giving people an improved reason to shift away from something. So if you're talking about first-person shooters, how many different ways can you do the first-person shooter? You've got to be, and these days to be a really successful first-person shooter, you've got to be able to run a game that is pinpoint, accurate, very fast, doesn't have any lag, no ping, got a good choice of weaponry, with a battle system that is sensible to a degree, and you've got all these other things that have to be around. If you think about who plays first-person shooters, primarily it's not on console, it's on PC. But those that do play it on console have already got 3 or 4 different high-end options, so to speak, around that segment. But if you're talking about third-person tactical shooters, totally different genre, you could quite easily say, well, how many of them are there? Well, most of the people who enjoy third-person shooters play battle royales are either playing PUBG or Fortnite. So if you shift away from that, you're looking at like Rainbow Six and Ghost Recon, and there's another one which name eludes me just at the moment. But there's already a couple of. Is Battlefield third person?
Oh shit! No, there isn't. Sorry, I thought it was just third person. Tactical. I was thinking tactical. Sorry.
Yeah. So there's a few games there already. So if they go and bring back something like MAG or SOCOM, or even to the point of talking about bringing back Resistance or Killzone or some of those, there would need to be a big driver to get a studio or any of the studios to do those instead of something they're already doing, where they can't get it from a third party to supply that little neck of the woods in their store, so to speak. Because if they have to kick the money in, they need it to be able to give a decent return. Because, everyone prattles on about how much money Sony's got, but they still don't have the massive flexibility yet to have a game absolutely bomb made in first party and then turn around and have enough to fund the next one. Because their first party games cost a mint. And they use a lot of the money they gain from third party sales to backfill a lot of that. So that's primarily the reason from a business perspective why you're very unlikely to see one of those come back in terms of the shooter ones. But if you want to talk about things like Twisted Metal and those ones, there's an open market there for that. So if they were remaking Twisted Metal, which I believe, not London Studios, what's the other one they're called? Fire Sprite or whatever they call themselves. They're supposed to have taken over development on that from Lucid Games. And they got to launch with the TV show or some crap like that is what a lot of people are saying. I'm waiting to see, actual confirmation before I believe that one, but because it'd be very unusual to take it, a game that's in mid-development off one studio and give it to a first-party studio, because there would be some big contractual payouts required there too.
And just add to what you're saying as well, David, in regards to first-person shooters, you could bring back Killzone Resistance, one of those, and make completely superior product that is a bloody awesome game that's still not going to sell as well as something like COD, just because of the user base and people flocking to that franchise. So you really can't create a great Resistance. You've got to create something absolutely brilliant to be able to compete, and people just aren't going to go to it.
Yeah, well, you'd be best to elaborate more than we can on the the fickleness of people changing away from something that they know. It's probably a nice way of saying it. COD could go to complete shit and be horrible, and I mean like genuinely horrible. The graphics could go tank, the gameplay could absolutely tank. They could destroy that game, and lovers of that franchise will probably still front up for that version and the next one being just as crap until they look at moving, because they're familiar and comfortable with it, I guess. Is that'd be a fair analysis of it?
Oh, big time. Totally agree.
Ooh.
We got Zuby. Zuby, are you back?
Yeah, sorry about that. The internet just went.
No. It's okay. It's okay. Okay. Well, I want to get this on, and then I'm going to ask William the same thing. He already knows the question, but I wanted to ask you: is Sony? Can you see Sony bringing back some of their original IP? A lot of people have called for Killzone Resistance, SOCOM, like I was saying, Twisted Metal. There, stuff like that. Warhawk, Sly Cooper. Can go on and on. Do you see Sony going into the archives and and bringing some of those games back this generation?
Yeah, 100%. Like, I think Mag was it was quite an experimental title, like, because he used quite a lot of PlayStation 3's CPU power. So I think you could see that come back, like especially with PlayStation 5's architecture, what it can do, especially the SSD. So yeah, I think franchises like Mag, there's huge potential for it to come back. Again, like, you've got such a big network of not only first party studios, now like second party studios like Deviation Games and Firewalk Studios is just like the potential so big there. I think Sony do know like those IPs exist, and they would bring some of them back if obviously the studio wants to do it. I don't think Sony would just leave them there and not ask the studio, like, you've got this amazing IP, we're doing live service now, do you want to bring it back? I think that would be up to the developer, not just say like Herman Host. So yeah, in terms of that, is I think the potential is there, 100%. I don't think like Siphon Filter was what's it called, the studio Sucker Punch They said they're not working on that, so I don't think that franchise is coming back anytime soon. But for the rest, like Resistance, I think is the number one. That for me, it should come back. I would 100% play it. Yeah, and there's potential there.
Can I? Sorry, I'm just going to jump in here. You just triggered my brain. Could full of speculating here. Could you imagine Bend redoing a Siphon Filter game in the Decima engine?
Be good. But we do know they're definitely going to be bringing back some IP because they said, remember when they announced that they had 25 new games in production? They said half of them were existing IP and half of them were new. So we're definitely going to see some IP we probably haven't seen in a while. You know what I mean?
You just want them to remake the original Gran Turismo, don't you?
I don't need them to, man, because Gran Turismo 7 is so much better. Like, I don't miss the older games, man, because it's just got better and better as the years have gone on.
What about Motorstorm? I heard that a lot too. Like Mystic Ryan.
Bro, do you want my honest opinion on Motorstorm?
Go ahead.
It was okay.
Oh.
Drive Club was a much better arcade game, an arcade racer, than what Motorstorm was. Motorstorm was fun, don't get me wrong, especially the third game. The 3D implementation with the buildings falling around you and stuff was really good. But for me, the biggest issue I have is that studio was closed down. I think it was Sony's biggest mistake was closing that studio down. I know, I understand they weren't making the money. I understand it was losing the money and stuff. I understand why they did it. I just think they could have maybe done with sticking them, keeping them close by.
I'm pretty sure that there's some more racer/car games besides Twisted Metal coming back from Wushu Studios and Lucid Studios. If the rumors are true that Fire Sprite has taken over the rumored Twisted Metal game, then Wushu and Lucid are doing a different car game. That
it's probably going to be
is the Motorstorm-esque type game.
Yeah, I was going to say it would be more because it was the more popular franchise out of the two.
Yeah, Retro. Sammy goes. Sammy Odyssey. Sorry, Willie. I just wanted to read this real quick. Sam Odyssey says here he goes ban Retro right now.
You don't know what you're talking about, Sammy. You haven't got a clue. All right, you just keep your opinions to yourself.
Anyhow,
how about that?
I'll just chime in here. Sorry, Wushu Studios. That's the one that was founded by Evolution Studios guys. And I believe.
Oh, is it Rushkey in that?
Yeah, I think so. But yeah.
Awesome! That's good news.
Yeah, Evolution Studios guys went and built that one. So there's a link
and Wushu and Lucid signed a deal to work together on a game.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I can sign it up.
I'm pretty sure they're making another car game.
Yeah, multiple games.
Sign me up, man.
It just so happens that Lucid and Wushu are in the same building on separate floors, which is just down the road from the new PlayStation UK Sony London headquarters.
On my acquisition list, I say that it's possible if one of them were to be acquired, it's possible that they could both be acquired and merged into one studio. I mean,
maybe
this is just speculation.
Into the London studio.
No, into one like new studio. But this is just speculation.
It's in a whole new entity. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is speculation
I have on my thing.
That new London studio premise is huge. There's a huge amount of free space in that place.
Yeah.
I really hope they're working on the Getaway again, man.
That was the one I wanted to ask you guys. That is a Sony. That's a Sony game.
Yeah.
London Studios is tied with their new side.
Yeah, the multiplayer
fantasy game, the new fantasy co-op game.
Well, what's going on? Okay, so between you three fellas, what is going on? I keep hearing about Guerrilla having the second studio, and that is, maybe the quote unquote, it might be Killzone, or I keep constantly hearing about SOCOM. That might be.
It's going to be Horizon multiplayer, man.
That's going to be the Horizon multi. Okay.
Almost guaranteed.
Okay.
So they're working on Horizon 3 and Horizon multiplayer, and they've got a third project which is external. So someone else is working with that. So that could be a title. That's Killzone.
For those who want more first-person and third-person shooters, there are first-person and third-person shooters that are in development for PlayStation exclusively that are being made right now. So don't worry about that. I just don't know if I want SOCOM to come back, but I don't know if it is. I do know there is there's several new third-person shooter IPs in development right now. So, and also PlayStation's plan for PlayStation 5 is to have at least 1 or 2 games for every single genre type. So, 1 or 2 games for racers / car games, 1 or 2 third-person shooters, 1 or 2 first-person shooters, 1 or 2 point-and-click games. There's one studio, I can't remember the name of it, that's doing a point-and-click game for PlayStation exclusively. Point and click would be like Telltale / Supermassive Games and all those kind of games. And there's so every single genre or playstyle or subsection there's also a lot of people forgot about Games is making Project what is it called? Project it's that Western RPG game. They're making Grand Blue Fantasy Relink right now, which will be a co-op anime game. But then after that, they have a Western RPG fantasy game that's in development for PlayStation 5 right now. That looks really good. So there's going to be there's going to be a game for 1 or 2 games for every single type of person. So be excited for that.
All right. So before I move on to the last thing, which is another big thing that people want to actually find out,
Project Awakening. That's what it's called. Project Awakening.
Project Awakening.
Yeah, Project Awakening from Cygames.
Okay. Wolf, did you have anything more you wanted to ask about the PSVR or any upcoming games that you would like Sony to see from Sony in that?
No, I think we've pretty much covered most of it. The only thing with PSVR is I think there's a lot of applications outside of gaming that we're going to see as well. I mean, I know like in aged care, just getting people out into wilderness and experiencing those things, disability sector, it's going to really open up a lot of uses for that, which I'm really keen to see. As I said before, those immersive experiences like Kayak VR are going to be awesome. Look, there's plenty of IP that I'd love Sony to bring back. I love SOCOM. That was bloody brilliant. And they've got so much on their plate. And then you look at the new IP that they've created, like Ghost of Tsushima, Horizon. Sony's, as far as I'm concerned, they're doing so many things right at the moment that I'm happy to sit back and just let them continue doing what they're doing because there's no reason for them to stop as far as I can see.
Have you got a couple of games on your PSVR 2 list? I know you do, because that's why I'm asking the question. But can you share a few of the games that you picked up on that you're looking forward to playing to share with the rest of us, for those of us who are still yet to fully commit?
It's on my laptop. I actually watched the PSVR with on Parole, I think the channel name is. Sorry if I got that wrong, fellas. They went through the 30 launch window games that are coming out, and there's a lot to be excited for on there. My top 3, without doubt, is going to be Horizon, GT7, and the Kayak game. They're going to be awesome. There's After the Fall is getting the upgrade, which is going to be a multiplayer shooter. I think it's a co-op shooter. That's looking really good. Resident Evil Village. I don't know if I'll actually play that because I played RE7 on PSVR and it absolutely scared the shit out of me. So I don't know whether I'll be able to handle Village, but I'm going to give it a shot. What else is there? There's a couple of sword games. There's Swordsman VR as well as Undead Citadel, I believe it is. And I don't think they're arena-based games. I've got more a bit of a storyline to them. So I'm really interested to see what those physics-based games are and really putting you into the world, which is really good. There's a couple of other little, I suppose you'd call them kiddie games, like Tentacular, I think that's how you pronounce it, and Cosmonius, which I know my daughter's really keen to jump on and check out. My biggest issue with PSVR 2 at the moment is trying to sort out how to fund a SSD to keep all these games on, so I'm not having to, transfer them from the external hard drive all the time, because that's the beauty of PSVR is you can jump into one experience to another. You don't have to really sit on one game until it's completed. I think I'm actually more excited for the PSVR 2 than I was for the PS5s, and yeah, that's saying something.
Cool. Actually, what was the name of that show? The PSVR.
On parole. I'll actually find it and I'll link it into the chat because they're bloody awesome. They're one of the best. If you want to look at any videos, and they're on Twitter as well. They're really the go-to guys. Brad and Miles was on the other day, so I'll find it and I'll link it into the chat.
Cool. Excellent. Thank you.
Let me okay, so we got about 35 minutes. But I want to spend the last 10 minutes finding out what everybody's been playing in that. So I'm gonna say probably about 25 minutes. This is the last question I got to ask the gentleman here. Is there going to be any kind of showcase this year? And I'm talking the entire year, not state of plays, because I figured they're probably do, a couple state of plays here and there, maybe 2 or 3 for the year. But is there going to be some kind of a big showcase to say, here we're dropping this. Here you go. This is what we got coming out in the next 12, 18, 24 months. This is what we have. These are all the deals, things like that. Zuby, why don't you go first on this? What is your thoughts on this, or have you heard anything?
Yeah, so currently, again, Sony don't like to do like big events middle of the year. It's just how they do things, to be honest. So September we were looking again like a big PlayStation showcase. I think if there's no like delays or anything that interrupts PlayStation, we'll see a PlayStation showcase in September, and we'll get loads of state of plays. I think there's one coming up soon as well before PlayStation VR 2 launches. So,
okay. And when does the PSVR 2 launch again? It's February
22nd.
22nd. Okay. Everybody in the chat and everybody here, remember that. I'm sure everybody knows that. That's here. It's February 22nd. But okay. Showcase in September, some state of plays in that. Let me ask you this, Zuby. Would you figure they're going to show everything they got, or basically say, this is what, we have in the next 12 months? I mean, like, are we going to see what Deviation, what Fire Sprite, what Haven is having? These studios that they bought over the last, year or two, are we going to be able to see what they have this coming year?
I mean, to be honest, like they've never had this big much of a pipeline ahead of them. Like in the entire PlayStation history, there's not this many games in development for PlayStation 5. It's just insane. Like, so they can show like the next 18 months and they will have so many more games to announce, because that's how many projects they got in development. It's just insane. And that's not just like that's not even including PlayStation VR 2. So again, like they can show like Deviation, Firewalk, Fire Sprite, and they will still have even more games to announce, because at the end of the day, you've got like PlayStation's first party. They're working on games already, like God of War is just shipped. So it's the pipeline's just too big. So they can just announce the next 18 months and it will look like they've got so many more games. So it's breathtaking.
See, and that's what, because I've been hearing stuff with Corey Barlog is supposed to have his sci-fi game. You know, there's rumors out there. There's a possibility of another Last of Us 3. Naughty Dog is supposed to have their sci-fi game or something like that. I just want to know. I don't need release dates or anything like that. I just need to say, hey, this is what we're working on. You know, give us something out there, and whatever. I'll be fine with that. I will definitely be fine with that. Let me end this, because then I'll jump over to David, and then we'll end with William and that, or we'll actually end with everybody asking questions. But does PlayStation come back to E3? Whatever E3 is doing this year, I don't even know what the hell it is, but do they come back with, to say, hey, we're back here, this is what we got? Do you see anything like that ever happening?
Never. I don't see Sony going to any big events, like even like CES. You saw them not announce their TVs. You'll see Sony push away from these big events, because when Apple does their conferences, they're all the focus is on them. So again, like in terms of E3, I don't see Sony ever going back, ever.
Okay, David.
Yeah.
What do you see? I mean, do you see anything on the horizon as a big showcase? We know there's going to be state of plays, but do you see a big showcase, and what do you think is going to actually be in that showcase?
I don't think that the big showcase is guaranteed anymore, and I say that because look at what happened the last half of this year, or the year just gone. There were a few different windows that they had opportunities to do a showcase in to show us what was coming. And every time a window would open, we'd go through it, and then it would close, and nothing, like radio silence. And then, with the lead up to God of War Ragnarok, and some of the other games that they released, they didn't even bother doing state of play. There's two games that one's been released, the other one's about to release. God of War Ragnarok didn't get a state of play at all. It got six developer diary style videos and a little bit of a push at the back end of the state of play, which gave us a release date, I think. And then that was it. There was no other major focus. And that's their biggest title. There's no other major focus on it in terms of doing state of plays or showcases. And then the next big exclusive that they got coming out, which is Forspoken, that's had a couple of developer diary vids put on YouTube as well, but it's not got a showcase or a state of play or dedicated anything. There's been a lot of write-ups on the blog, but there's no guarantee there's going to be any kind of major showcase to say that they are going to, here, look at all the big stuff we've got. You look at what they've got coming out till the end of June, and they have not had a state of play or showcase for 3 or 4 months now. And then, we've got nearly 2 major games every month for the next 6 months. And June's got 3 major releases in it for PlayStation, which could be one of their biggest releases, including what could be one of their biggest releases this year in Final Fantasy 16. And then we've got a heap of other windows. They went to... And everyone says, they were at games at the Game Awards. No, PlayStation exclusive games were shown at the Game Awards, but they weren't PlayStation first parties. And there's some chatter on in the background to get around the crunch and to get around a lot of the other issues that they've been having, that there's this decision that PlayStation just won't announce the release date on a game. They might give windows, but they won't give a window until they're close and they know they can hit it. And they won't give a release date until they're certain that that's not going to shift. And that's evident with some of the first-party games that they've done recently. So there's, I don't even know the right way of explaining it. There's a desire to not put their flag in the sand and go, on this particular point, this will be happening, because of the kickback they get if they have to shift it. Until they know it's going to happen, they're probably not going to tell us. Even third-party exclusive games are now getting windows, and they're not getting definite release dates. So if they've got so much flexibility, and the kickback they get from the communities online when they go and do something and say, this is the window, this is the window, this is the window, watch for this coming next year, watch for this coming next year. They get all these release windows at no definite dates. And the first thing all the content creators do is complain about, why can't you tell us the release date? If you know it's only 6 months away, just give us a date. So in order to avoid all that issue, it's very unlikely that you'll see major showcases that have got, I really don't know if we'll ever get another 30 or 40 minute showcase that's got all this stuff in it. I'm actually starting to think that there's unlikely to be even a showcase or a state of play for the PSVR 2, because they've done so many write-ups on it and they've shown it off, made the big GT7 announcement at CES, and it's out in 6 weeks. If you're going to do a showcase, you'd be doing it in the next 2 weeks at least, because pre-orders cut off on the 21st or the 22nd of this month. So you got, what's that, 12 days? But then how do you show off PSVR stuff on a YouTube channel? So, So I've got some thoughts around whether that will happen going forward. Now, there isn't a requirement or a need for them to announce to the market what they're doing, because the shareholders and the regulatory authorities and whatnot, you have to communicate publicly what the plan is going forward. But that doesn't mean we're going to get a 30 or 40 minute showcase. That may mean we get a couple more blog posts and maybe a state of play here or there that focuses on something. But, that's just my thought. They're never going to go back to E3. They may continue at CES for a little while. I don't know if that's going to be an ongoing thing. Where PlayStation or Sony is a more broader organization is getting a lot of value out of going to these industry events is less around being there to do their own press conferences and more around being there in the background and just networking and working with a lot of the others. Tokyo Game Show is a great example. PlayStation had no presence at Tokyo Game Show, but they footed the bill for over 100 indie and small third-party developers to be there that otherwise wouldn't be there. So they effectively filled nearly half that building on their own money to get people there to have that trade show, to then go and look at all the stuff that was put on show and, pick up heaps. And they did the same thing at PAX. They kicked in money for that, sent a few people over, had a couple of interviews, but didn't take the headline at all. So I think you'll find that that's saving them a lot of money whilst giving them a lot more value.
And we've both seen that, haven't we, Dave? Like with PAX, because I know both of us followed like Shuhei and I think it was Greg Rice come down for it. Just the amount of passion that they showed towards the Australian developers and the networks that they made behind the scenes, and it wasn't even them putting it out. It was these small developers saying, I've had lunch with Shuhei and this was being discussed, and they're getting a lot of benefit out of that, which we're not going to see until these games are coming out, and I think we're going to, it's going to be surprising.
There's over 1,000 conversations. I think I saw a number somewhere. Shuhei and Greg Rice and their team, they had about 5 or 6 people come down over the week that they said Melbourne International Games Week, and then that ended with PAX Australia. They're here for 8 days. Had over 1,000 conversations with over 1,000 people in 8 days, and secured like 150 new games for PlayStation in a week.
And wasn't it like a week after that the Australian government announced the tax issues?
Yep. The week after that, the Australian government announced that there's a investment tax offset of if you've got a project that's over $250,000 investment, you can claim up to $300,000 as a tax offset, which is a cash offset. So if anybody wants to make a game, set up a studio down here, and I'll gladly tell you how you go and claim all that cash back, because it's ridiculous how good it would be.
People don't realise that. Cult of the Lamb was made by an Australian dev, wasn't it?
Yep. So Cult of the Lamb made by something Monsters, Massive Monsters, was it? I think mostly predominantly Australian dev, but they have a UK office, but it was mostly worked on. What's its name? Silksong. Hollow Knight. Silksong is one of the biggest indie games expected to come out this year. That's made in Adelaide by a small team down there. Wayward Strands is another point and click narrative interactive story. That thing's done an amazing job globally. It's got some big name Australian actors in it doing the voice acting. That was put together by 7 people. Unpacking is it Unpacking? I think so. Australia, New Zealand, South African joint effort of about 10 people. So, yeah,
and Chris, you just mentioned the Wombat game coming out. That's going to be awesome.
Yes, Combat Wombat. What's that one called? The Hollow something.
Yeah.
That thing's awesome. But when you hear me get passionate about this stuff, these are the indie games that as I said before, they've got flexibility in their creativity. They can do something. You know, a Wombat doing combat stuff. All the typical third person close combat moveset. They've got a spear or a cane or a sword fighting, whatever it is, hand-to-hand combat. But the big difference is that a Wombat in this particular game, they can tunnel underground. So instead of jumping over or gliding over or whatever with the combat, instead of going above your enemy, you can go below your enemy, or you can go below and escape, or you can use ground-based attack moves, and it just brings something different to the combat and gameplay set. And that it's a little quirk, and somebody's gone, oh well, let's try doing this and adapt it to that. It could be looks like it's going to be a pretty decent game. So anyway, sorry, I digress. I don't see PlayStation particularly increasing its involvement in other areas. I think that more and more you'll find that Sony will retract to just doing its own thing.
William, I wanted to get your thoughts. And if you can do it in about 10 minutes, because I want to get to what everybody's been playing and that stuff. But give your thoughts on showcases, a major showcase and state of plays and that.
I think that there will be a showcase this year. And the reason why is because there's just, as Zuby Tech said, there's just too many games in development right now that have yet to be announced that need to be announced. And the problem is, like, they have so many. They would either have to do more state of plays than they did last year. Let's say they didn't do any showcase, right? They would have to do a couple more state of plays in order to make up for because there's about 30 games in development from first and second party studios that will be exclusive to PlayStation 5 that are in development. And that is not including third party exclusive games and third party multiplat games. And that's not including third party multiplat games that have exclusive DLC. For example, Hogwarts Legacy, a big game coming out this year, has exclusive DLC for PlayStation 5. And you're going to see some of that in some other games from third-party games as well. So I think that there's just so many games in development that have yet to be announced that need to be announced because eventually, because the games, even if they're not announced, the games are still being developed in the same time frame in the background, so that like the games aren't being delayed in the background just because we don't have a showcase. The games are still going to come out at the same amount of time. So because there's just this huge, it's like a floodgate. It's like a dam that's boiling over with water. There's so much behind the dam that it needs to spill out because there's just so much. Otherwise, you're gonna get to a point where games are like exclusive games for PlayStation 5 will have to be announced on their own if there's no showcase to announce them in, because there's just so many of them. I think there's like 50 games in development for PlayStation 5 that are exclusive. That's like 25 first and second party games and 25 third party exclusive games. And that's not including, because every showcase and state of play, you also have third-party non-exclusive games that are announced as well, like big third-party games. Like your Call of Duties, your Hogwarts Legacies, your Lord of the Rings games, and stuff like that are third-party that are going to be in everything, but they also like to put those in showcase as well. So for that reason alone, I think that there definitely will be a huge showcase this year, and I think that 2023 will be the year of announcements. Whereas, uh, um, there won't. There will be several big first party game launches this year, and a few that haven't been announced yet. But this will mainly be the year of announcements. It'll be like 2015, 2016 E3. It'll be that scale. That's my prediction, and I think it'll be either June or September timeframe for a showcase. And then I do believe that there will be several state of plays. I believe that there will be a state of play before the launch of the PSVR 2, just because there's several games coming out between now and between now but before summer, because like usual showcase will be in June, July, August, or September. There's a lot of games coming out between now and June, July, and August that you'll need to have an announcement for. So that's why I think there probably will be a pretty substantial state of play, like on the same scale. Like last year's 2 state of plays were almost big enough to be their own showcase. So I think there'll be a big state of play between now and March, and then there'll be another huge showcase in summertime. That's my prediction.
Okay. Let me see here. I think I turned myself down a little bit too much. All right, so we got about I'm going to say about 13, 14 minutes in that. I know between Dewalf and also David, you guys are starting your Monday morning in that. So, but what I wanted to do is I wanted to give everybody some time to say, what do you guys been playing and everything. So, what I want to do is start with Jim. Just go right down the line. Jim, what you been playing lately?
City Skylines.
Is that on PlayStation 2 or is that just a PC game?
Started on PC from what I remember, and now it's on consoles as well. I'm not sure if it's just PlayStation or if it's PlayStation and Xbox, though.
There's going to be a PSVR 2 version of Skylines.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so if you want to play that, there'll be a PSVR 2 version of City Skylines.
Yeah, which means should be VR version coming to PC soon then. Most likely. So yummy.
There you go. The PSVR I got when it's in Best Buy, that's when I'll go over and I'll try it in that. And I'm telling you, if I like it, I'm definitely buy it. But I have never tried PS or VR whatsoever. Now, my wife, on the other hand, oh Lord, she's been bugging the hell out of me. So I'm like, maybe I should just buy another PlayStation and then get her the VR, and then she could just leave me the hell alone. Because don't be touching my shit, man. She don't like it when I touch her stuff. I don't want her touching my stuff. But okay, so you're playing City Skylines Retro.
Yep, and I'm currently doing it right now as we talk.
Okay. Damn, everybody gets to play these damn games and I get nothing. Retro.
What?
You've been playing, I'm pretty sure, Gran Turismo, but is there anything else you've been playing?
I've been playing Need for Speed too.
Okay.
Started Cyberpunk again as well.
Oh man, somebody was telling me at work about Cyberpunk.
Biomutant, I've started that as well.
Okay. Mr. DeWolf. Well, you know what? Before I go to DeWolf, how is Biomutant?
It's actually pretty fun, man. It's a lot more entertaining than I thought it was going to be. So I'm definitely going to spend a bit of time in it.
Okay. See, I'm looking forward to playing that. DeWolf, what you been playing lately?
I've actually been playing Witcher 3 again, right back into that, trying to get the platinum this time, which is actually quite annoying me because I've still got Horizon Forbidden West and God of War Ragnarok to finish off, but I just haven't been jumping into them. I've still got to do the cafe menus in Gran Turismo 7, which Retro keeps going off at me about.
Hurry up,
Nürburgring's
man,
really killing me at the moment. Nürburgring's
so I can
killing
beat
me,
your
mate. I
ass.
just can't do it. But honestly, I know I'm probably beating a dead horse, but I'm just buying time until PSVR comes out. Like at the moment, there's nothing that's really keeping me going. It's just jumping in and playing stuff until I can get onto that.
Mr. Zuby Tech, what you been playing lately?
A lot of Need for Speed Unbound. Really enjoying that game.
Okay. Need for Speed. Mr. William Aguilar, what you been playing?
I recently beat Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core Reunion. I played the hell out of that game. I did every single mission, even though like level 9 and level 10 star missions. That game is super, super fun to play. The story is okay. Like I thought it was pretty good. I really like Zack. It's not as good as Final Fantasy VII Remake's story, but it's still a pretty good story. But the combat is just so fun in Crisis Core Reunion. And there's so many different builds you can do. So I played the hell out of that. I put like 40 hours into that game, even though the story is only like 5 hours long max, or maybe 10 hours long. And then the next game I'm going to jump into is the PS5 version of Witcher 3, because I played Witcher 3 up until I got to Skellige, and then I stopped, and I haven't gone back. So I want to go back, restart, and just play through it again on the definitive version. And I also want to play Star Ocean Divine Force, because that's on my back catalog. So those are the next 2 games I'm going to play, and while I wait for Hogwarts Legacy to come out.
Okay, David, what have you been playing?
I've been playing Horizon Forbidden West, getting lost in that. That's a pretty lot bigger game than I thought it was. Been playing that in my solo gaming time. Been playing Pokemon Violet and Pokemon Scarlet with my son, helping him out with some of his stuff there. And that's pretty much been it for my last couple of weeks. Been sinking a lot of time into Horizon Forbidden West. It's an odd one. I like running around and looking at the old stuff. Sounds a bit strange, but the story is pretty good. I'm compelled by the story, and a lot of the side stories are quite interesting. But just looking around at that was a car, and this is where the road was, and that was a building, and all that. The way that they've done the deterioration of the world, I find that quite intriguing. It's a very interesting perspective of it, particularly how they see how they depict the way that some buildings have disintegrated and others haven't. So, yeah, been quite enjoying that.
Okay, because I don't know why Callie is so obsessed with what I've been playing lately, but okay, here we go.
It's My Little Pony, isn't it?
What's that?
It's My Little Pony, isn't it?
It's always SpongeBob, man. He fucking loves SpongeBob.
Oh, I'm waiting for that new SpongeBob game. I'm like, yo,
Does it come with limited edition Crocs?
why do you guys need to bust my balls back?
Wasn't it that old Croc game? Wouldn't you like that? A remake of the old Croc game?
Oh, I'd love a remake of Croc 3D. That game was awesome.
Okay, so you know what? Since Dewalf actually brought that up, maybe he might appreciate this. Okay, so last weekend I told everybody Friday night, just real quick, we went to Legoland, then we went to Dave and Buster's, and my wife was sitting there and she's like, let's go to the retro place, right? So we went over to the retro place later Saturday night and she wound up getting Tigger, some Tigger game, bowling. I got 2 Prince of Persia games, but I got Army Men 3D. And I know Retro was listening to this Friday night and that. So I actually started playing the PlayStation 1 game Army Men 3D and was having an incredible time with that because it just brought back so many memories and everything. And then I went and I bought Scarface and The Suffering for the PlayStation 2 because my wife got me a PlayStation 2 for Christmas. And the reason behind that is because a lot of the videos that I do with Darth, he has like a gigantic. He has a room that he has all his stuff in there: Sega, Nintendo, PlayStation 2, PlayStation 1. So I got to try to keep up with him with his PlayStation games. But then I went and I got, and it's supposed to be here this week, the Die Hard trilogy that was originally on the PlayStation 1. And I got Sarge's Heroes that is on the PlayStation 1. And I mean, I'm paying for these. It's like pennies. I think Sarge's Heroes, I got it for like $7 off of eBay. But I've been playing a lot of retro games, and then the last 3 games I've played on the PlayStation 5 was Full Blast, which is an indie game. I've been actually hitting. I'm going to be doing a lot of indie games in the next week or two in that because I just bought a bunch of them, and I really like it. Just like David and everybody here, Dewalf and that, like the indie games. The indie games are really, really awesome in that. But it was Full Blast, which is a side-to-side plane game shooting over. If you ever played the Jackal from the PS1 game or from the PS1 era, it's kind of like that where you had the helicopter and you're flying over top of everything and you're shooting aliens and stuff like that. New Bella, I think it's called. It's a kind of an artsy game. You go in and you're looking through these mirrors. And you're trying to get these constellations to help this elephant out. You just got to play it. It's a good-hearted game. You know, it's nothing fancy or anything like that. Very good game. And then I've started playing 36 Fragments of Midnight and Birthday of Midnight, which are indie games too. But I want to get them out of the way. Because this show here that like we are doing for the Friday night show, just to put this out there, is every month, the beginning of the month, what we're going to do is everybody on the panel, they're going to have their own genres that they're covering game wise to give, the audience, hey, here you go, check these games out and that reviews, things like that. These could be games from somebody could be doing Pong for crying out loud, reviewing Pong. Hey, that's their game, but it's part of the genre. Just something to break it up a little bit more because we want to talk about games, so let's do that. So that's the whole thing. But that's actually going to do it. I want to ask anybody here: is there anything you guys want to leave us before we get out of here for today? Anybody want to throw anything out there? Hopefully I answered.
2023 is going to be a great year for PlayStation. It'll be
Amen.
legendary.
Gran
I'm
Turismo
hoping so.
7 in VR. Enough said.
Never heard of it.
Yeah, you'll probably want to put it down once I beat your ass a couple of times at it.
This is the reason why I wanted to end the show like this because, yes, the back and forth in that.
And you need to sort that Croc situation out, man. It's getting unhealthy.
I'm wearing Nikes right now, so I'm just letting you know.
It's
I'm
like-
not wearing
it's-
Crocs, wearing Nikes.
Like Doom's fascination with Crocs is rivaled only by Retro's fascination with GT7 in VR.
It's not fascination, man. It's love. There's no
Wait a minute.
fascination.
Whoa.
Straight up
Hey,
relationship.
Hold on. I got to cut in here for a minute. Callie, you're horrible, dude. You are hard. Cornbread is bland. There's there's plenty of taste. What the hell's wrong with you, dude? Come on, cornbread and a beer. Damn, you're living the life right there. Okay. Well, I'm going to end the show here by saying next Sunday at 1:00, the fine gentlemen, Mr. David, Mr. Retro, they're going to be joining me. We're having a round table, a sort of round table next week of devs. We're going to have Hamp. We're going to have Deezy. Agent Deli is going to be in here, and I can't wait to finally meet this gentleman. He was on Wooly Show last year. NXG Gamer is going to be on. He does reviews in that for IGN. And anybody in the chat, I'm going to open up the Discord like I did today. If you guys have any questions that you want to throw to the developers, you can do it here, whether it's on YouTube, you want to do it on Discord, that's fine. I'm actually going to be taking questions if you want to DM them to me during the week, and that please do, because I want to ask these guys, questions that maybe you've been wondering yourself in that. But we're going to have all those gentlemen here. And I think, yes, we are actually going to have KY Bob on with us next Sunday with us too in that. So it'll be a great show, 1:00. Join us then. And basically that's going to do it for us today. Thank you to everybody in the chat. And I really want to say a thank you to all of our guests today. William, Zuby, Dewolf, all you guys. Appreciate you giving up the time to jump on here and that. Thank you. I love it. And you guys were fantastic in that. That's basically going to do it for us today. Everybody have a great day, and we'll see you next Friday and then Sunday. So we are out of here.